also got to learn to Put your hand on the button now.
Alrighty. I'm here. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. I come to suck your blood. Oh. What the heck? Okay. All right. Okay. What's going on, everyone? How are we doing? How are we? Pigeon, thank you for the raid. Raven, we just got all the birds. We got all the birds. Yeah, let me figure out where this is. Hold on. There we go. There we go. I know Michael Madsen died. I know. I just saw that. Yeah, he was only 67. Apparently, he died of cardiac arrest. Raven, anyway, thank you for the 9 months. Happy 4th of July Eve. Yay! Wow. I feel so patriotic. America. America. Mara. KKK. Alright. Okay, peeps. What can we even say? Truly, what is there to say? Well, what did I do today? I went on to Taylor Lorenz, Kat Timbarge, and I spent like 2.5 hours today filming a video for Taylor's YouTube channel. So that was what I did. We talked all about Sean Combs and just, smear campaigns against women. All that good stuff. Great. Yeah, just the feeling of having to just battle so many enemies on so many different fronts. I just start streaming unless you make it look so easy. Well, good luck. Just, do something that you care about is what I will say. That's
Coin
the
heart.
best. Oh, that's the best advice that I can give to anybody. Joshua girl, what the heck? What are you doing here? It's 4th of July. I'm stamping on the American flag early. This sucks. Wow, the vibe in here today is just very it's like melted emoji face. Wah, wah, wah. I mean, look. Here's the thing. Here's the deal. Okay. For any Democrat who wants to be in power, they have to run on a platform that at minimum has Medicare for all, abolishing ICE, obviously, taking a position against Israel would be ideal. But, I think I think we just have to try to replicate the campaign and energy around someone like Zoran, you know? Can't just be in New York City. The bill passed, right? I just woke up. Oh yeah, it passed because the conservatives all got together and did a prayer circle. They got together late night in Mike Johnson's office so that they could pray to Jesus. Please, dear Lord, baby Jesus, give us the strength to just further destroy poor people in this country. Because you know Jesus hated the poor, famously hated the poor. So it makes sense that Christians in Congress would pray to Jesus so that they could fuck poor people in this country. Nothing says Christianity like denying the sick, elderly, and disabled health care. That is true. That's the real Christian spirit. That's what I remember when I was a little Christian girl. I was taught that we worship billionaires and big corporations and screw the poor, the disabled, the elderly. That's right. Katie, thank you for the gifted sub. Jade, thank you for the 4 months. Jesus wanted everyone to give up their material wealth so that he could make fun of more poor. Yes, this is true. Yes, that's in the Bible. That is in the Bible. The bill passed by 2 votes and 3 Dems died in office this year. Yeah, so you know how we've been screaming about the gerontocracy, about old people in Congress and being like, you're literally dying in office. You refuse to step down from power, and so you are dying in office. And then you are killing us. I mean, honestly, that's the standard for work, you guys. Hello, let's follow by their example, where you should love your job so much that you die during your job. They're just following girl boss RBG legacy. That's right. Can we watch the Michael Madsen Reservoir Dogs torture later in memory? You know what? Yes, we can. We can. Hi, mother. Hello. Anyway, y'all, I know today is terrible. I know a lot of days have felt terrible, but especially today. And of course, you know, the major cuts that are part of this bill will be kicking in after the midterms, and so there's going to be this period of time where a lot of people in this country don't understand how badly they're going to be fucked over. And all I will say is that we just have to burn it down. We do. We have to take power away from these people because they are using Congress as a personal piggy bank. And I'm sorry, but Hakeem Jeffries giving the longest speech on the House floor, and then the Democrats being like, look at our leadership. Thank you, sir, for standing up for the mayor. It's like, can you guys all die? Can you all die? Please. Wow. Look at my opposition, dog. I mean, we know that they're not opposition. We know that. Like, yeah, thanks for nothing. We hold these truths to be self-evident. You know, the Democrats love to put on this show. They love to do the theatrics and then be like, job well done. Hakeem Jeffries has posted a picture of a baseball bat. A baseball bat, and he said, I'm going to take this to the big, beautiful bill. It's like, wow, King, thank you. Did you see this? Yes. And also, like, okay. Here's something a lot of people don't know. When more people become uninsured, for those who have insurance, it will make your insurance more expensive. It makes it more expensive for everybody. And a lot more people are on Medicaid than they recognize. It's just that states have different names for their Medicaid programs. So in California, it's Medi-Cal. I just opened Stream, saw the title. Is that a congressional policy platform? I mean, it should be. It should be for every single person who wants to have power, the bare minimum. Yes, I did see this. This is just one example of where am I? Hold on a second. Okay, wait. Hello. Where did I go? I've disappeared because I just can't do it anymore. Ah! Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, there's full screen. This camera, why is this camera always changing? I do not know. Okay, that is video capture device 3. Why is this always doing something funky? You guys, I cannot, look at me. You all want me to run for office, and I can't even ever figure my camera out. Although I guess I would belong in Congress. I guess that would make me a valid member of Congress, being like, how do I do any of this tech stuff? I'm double fisting your stream and clips of a streamer playing a horse girl game. These are trying times. A horse girl game? Like, is it a game where you are a horse girl? Raziel Prime, thank you for 16 months. Is that Squeaks? Is Squeaks playing the horse girl game? My culture is not your costume. My culture is not for your gaming amusement. Can we play the horse girl game? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a horse girl, but maybe it's time now. Okay, let's look at this example here. My parents own their own small business in Pennsylvania. The BBB cuts to healthcare tax credits means their insurance costs go from $4,620 a year to $27,810.60 a year. Yeah. They want you to die. Okay? That's what's going on here. They just want you to die. They want you to die. And they gleefully like chant and cheer about people dying. And as I said yesterday, I saw now a couple tweets. I've seen a couple tweets that are like, this is about to birth 15,000 more Luigis. So how do they know that already? Because they know how they know what their monthly premium is now and what it will be without the tax credits. Right? Like without it's like when you go online, like you're looking for various insurance, it will show you the cost, and then it'll show you if you qualify for a tax credit, like then what that reduced cost is. So, and those tax credits are going away for a lot of people. Westman, well, remember that there's things that we have to think up here, okay? What Westman really meant is that Luigi didn't do it because there's no evidence. Some people think this will activate people towards class consciousness. I think the suffering will just make it easier for demagoguery and manipulation. Curious to hear your thoughts. Well, people in like the people in power who are doing this, they want to make it harder for people to organize. They want to crush people so badly that there is no threat of any type of political revolution. And look, this is where like organizers come in. This is where leftists come in, where rather than look at people who voted for Trump, you know, and I'm not talking about his crazy MAGA base who like they don't give a shit about anything except worshiping at the altar of Trump. But a lot of poor people, a lot of, you know, working class people in this country who just, you know, have voted Democrat in the past, have, you know, voted Trump maybe once, maybe twice. Like, instead of going, ha ha, you deserve this, that's what you get. Instead, you know, like effectively trying to communicate to people why this is so harmful, you know, before they start to feel the effects, and also like showing them that there is a different way. And that's hard. Like that type of radicalization towards class consciousness is not easy. But the problem is that when people feel that they are only presented with two options, and option one is terrible and option two is terrible, then they feel demoralized. Then they will end up just retreating from any type of civic life and will participate less and less in elections, which we've seen, right? You know, Donald Trump won in 2024, but his numbers were down because federal across the board, those who voted in the election, it was less than it was in 2016, I believe, because people are feeling exhausted by politics. When they don't like the options that they have, they will engage less and not engage more, you know? Trump's policies will cause massive suffering, and the people in the gun states will remain propagandized, which will lead to more mass casualty events. Yeah, and what happens is that these policies destroy the lives of working class people, and then Republicans will turn around and somehow be able to spin this to avoid avoid any accountability, avoid any blame to it. The fact that they're just straight up lying and saying that Medicaid is not going to be cut, like they're lying about that. And then meanwhile, the Democrats are like waving baseball bats around and talking about how they're going to change the name of the bill, and then like screaming about Zoran Mamdani. That's what's going on. Queen, you popped off in my deco edit. Oh, let me see.
I'm a white woman who runs a Japanese store. Everything is from China.
A phone
in
case.
my Japanese store with Korean drinks
That's
ran
right.
by a white woman.
A phone
We're diverse.
stand? Wait, what do you do with the phone?
Cutie is my favorite white Asian woman.
What color should I get?
I know they're also pretty.
You were supposed to help me.
I just work here.
Why are you already freaking out?
I'm a landscaper's daughter, doing my best.
And I also want a Polaroid. You take Polaroid pictures here?
We do charge $3.
I'll give you one.
That's not how it works.
Nintendo is going to take your
That
ass.
guy's name is Mauricio. It's $30. And
$30, I'll give you 10.
It includes two.
Yeah, that one.
So you get two.
Oh, I can.
Some negotiating like this is like Congress negotiating on your healthcare, where we're like, hey, can we move towards a single payer system? Like, no. And also, we're going to give you less healthcare. Less of you will get healthcare.
God,
You do not listen to women.
Getting inspo.
Don't look at
No,
my.
not from you.
So wherever glue's gonna be, you're gonna.
Bucky,
sand it.
thank you for the
We do
gifted.
construction.
Piping?
So you're,
It's like cake
I
frosting.
don't need a tutorial
my
for
God.
piping.
Oh my god. It's just really hard to be around you most of the time.
That's what she said.
That one didn't even.
Why does everything look so edible?
What? You're holding it wrong. It just feels like you didn't listen.
No, I do listen to you.
I listen to women, okay?
And the satanic summoning circle represents.
I found my true calling.
I'm so proud of my work.
Oh, it's cute. It's like a wedding cake.
That's nice, Hassan.
The cameras represent.
The ability to make a 6'5" hairy Turkish man baby girl.
This very special cookie that I bit,
Must
I'm
be
gonna
steady.
put back in there, letting y'all know.
Hassan, which
not
one was it?
Oh, I forgot.
Coming
You
for
can,
us
you
all.
can say it's
Back
fire.
here.
What do we think? Rate it out of 10.
We did
Don't quit
sanitize
your
all
day
of these.
job.
I'll bite all 7 right now. Give it
No,
to
he's
me.
not
Give it
gonna.
to me.
No, Hassan, it's a health issue.
This is Pikachu.
You like them? Okay.
The little baby loves the kitten. What, you don't kiss your pets?
You got this, Caroline. I think I should just start all over.
All right, so we're going
$10.
Dutch, right? We're all
Has
splitting it,
what?
guys? Oh, I didn't bring my wallet.
We do Apple Pay.
I don't have Apple
welcome.
Pay. That's awkward. What do I do?
He did not tip. I would like to make that.
There was no tipping option.
Sans pet potato.
Well, at least under the big beautiful bill, tips will not be taxed. So Hassan can surely tip next time we go to Deco because it will be untaxed. Your co-host has a unique way of saying the word headache. What did this
Braver. I
dummy?
think you're thinking of. No, hibachi is food. I feel like I don't know what you're thinking about, but maybe I am. I think I might, but I don't know. Hitachi. Oh my gosh, wait, is that actually a brand of vibrator? Hitachi? Have I been saying I have a... No fucking way. I've been telling people for years that I have to go home because I have a Hitachi.
Wait, what does she say? A
I
Hadachi?
have a Hitachi! Because I'm pronouncing headache like a... People have been thinking I have to go home and crank my hog.
And you know what? We've got 35-year-old gamers sitting in their mom's basement playing video games, unemployed, soaking up all the taxpayers' dollars in this country. And you also have 30-year-old women sitting at home using their Hitachi vibrators, not going to work. Like, these are the new welfare queens. Okay, they're getting all these benefits to just sit at home, use their vibrators, play their video games. Taking up all the health care.
But we don't.
Taking up all the health care. Okay, I've had enough. I have had enough of these 30-year-old women and their vibrators and these 35-year-old men and their video games. Was she pronouncing it wrong on purpose? Yes. I think she was saying she thought it was a fun thing to say headache as Hadachi, right? Like a fun little thing, and then realized that that's a brand of a vibrator.
Like a fork. I'm gonna heal myself. There's no world where that just happened, and now I have to sit with this. I'm gonna think about this for the next probably 2 weeks.
Get this girl out of North Carolina. Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. Anyway, it is kind of wild to see how the new welfare queen is the 35-year-old gamer sitting in their mom's basement. Like, they keep using this line over and over again.
Well, 35-year-olds sitting at home playing video games. They're going to now have to go get a job. That's right. And by the way, that's a good thing for them.
I'm sorry, but who is this person? Who is this person who's 35, unemployed, sitting at home playing video games? Because there's a lot of people who play video games and who are 35, but they have jobs. I mean, look, even Asmongold has a job, and his job is being 35, sitting at home playing video games and also saying really horrible shit. But like this image of like the 35-year-old unemployed video game player. That's why I said yesterday, look, it's time for the oppressed gamers to get class consciousness, all right? Because they are calling you the new welfare queens. All right? This is the new line of attack.
Their mom doesn't want them sitting in the basement playing video games anyway.
Their mom don't want them sitting in the basement playing video games. Okay, you got to go out and get a job. You want them video games, you got to go get a job to play for them video games.
Able-bodied people, 35-year-olds sitting at home.
You know what's funny? I know a lot of people who play video games because I'm a streamer. Oops.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
Yes. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. I like to blow your eardrums out here. And sorry, now you won't have healthcare to fix your ears because they've been destroyed here on the CarolineKwan stream. I know one person who actually does that, but he refuses to get diagnosed as autistic. So even if that's the case, it's still better to fund mental health and be accepting of people with disabilities. Yeah, like, are there maybe some individuals who are 35 years old sitting in their mom's basement and don't have a job and they're playing video games? Okay. Do I think that those people shouldn't have health care? Absolutely not. In fact, I wish we had a country that we lived in where there was more time for like leisure activities, where you didn't have to work to live. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to work to live? That if you didn't work, your 18 jobs, then you'll just die? That even if you're working 60, 70 hours a week, you're like barely scraping by? Wouldn't that, like, why is it that life has to be so hard? Why did we decide that this needs to be the case? Who wants that? It's like, man, we have a very short time on this planet. Why should we not be able to enjoy our time as much as we can and not be bogged down by the insane costs of living that are made all the worse by people who have a lot of money? Oh my God, the hero we need.
This city needs a dark protector. The fat cats have run around for long enough. On vengeance.
Yeah! He's gonna take on the billionaires and the CEOs. What the hell just happened? I promise you that was not planned. You guys, it's the Luigi Batman. That's right. It's Luigi Batman. Are you okay? Are you a little freaked out? Wow. You know what? The hero we need and the hero that we deserve. How do you get into your place? He's Batman. He just aura farmed. This is what it is like. This is what it is like living with Will Neff. These moments happen. I don't expect them, but I accept them. Lex, thank you for the 20 months. Kanifa, thank you for the 16 months. Joel, thank you for the 15 months. Manong Hassan, thank you for the 24 months. Will Neff knows Batman. He does. He does. And you guys don't worry, okay? Don't worry about this stupid, big, beautiful bill, because this guy, he's about to go kick some ass. He's going to go kick some real stinking butt. He's the BBB's the big, beautiful Batman. Yeah, that's right. Why is this motherfucker not on the pod filming? Because he's doing this. because of that. I just joined. Did you know that the BBB passed? Yes, I know, which is why I called on Batman to just go do some violence, because I think that that's what we need. What? Who said that? Not me. I'm joking, obviously. I meant that like in a movie, in like The Dark Knight, you know?
Massive
Yes. As a joke. Of course, obviously. Wait, what is this?
So this is big. Just wanted to update everyone. We are on the verge of taking out all the ops. So this is big stuff here. And let's hope we get done soon. Appreciate you. Just wanted to update everyone. We are on the verge of taking out all the ops.
Why is this guy? This guy does sound like Sketch. I feel like he also looks like a compilation of a bunch of different streamers.
Here. And
also kind of like a meme of JD Vance.
Done soon.
Will there be more Mecha Break later? There will be Mecha Break this weekend. He looks like a compilation. You know what I mean. Why? See? Why does he look so fucking familiar? He also looks like Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh my God. This person looks like everyone. Every white guy. This guy looks like... Hold on a second. I just want you guys to know that we're going to get it done soon. All right. What is it? I don't know, but we're gonna get it done. Okay.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We go right now to Capitol Hill. Republican leaders have, appear to have convinced enough far-right holdouts to win passage of President Trump's budget bill, the sweeping package of tax cuts for the wealthy, deep cuts to social programs, including Medicaid and SNAP food assistance, and massive amounts of new funding for immigration enforcement and detention. The Congressional Budget Office says the bill will add $3.3 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimates some 17 million people could lose health insurance.
I don't know what to say. Like, what? All these deficit war hawks being like, we gotta lower the deficit, and then voting for this bill. Like, what do you... They're such hypocrites. Like, they're trash. They're trash. They're garbage. I don't even know... What else can be said about these fucking monsters? These monsters who also get richer by doing this because they are invested in companies that are getting these tax breaks that are going to be benefiting, like, you know, Congress people who have investments in oil and gas. Like they just make money off of this too. They're just ghouls. They're ghouls. They're scum.
For the next decade as well, if the bill is approved. For more, we go to Ro Khanna, Democratic Congress member from Silicon Valley, from California, vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Congressmember, thanks so much for joining us. To say the least, as we broadcast, this is a very tense moment on Capitol Hill and around the country. Tell us what's happening.
Unfortunately, it looks like the Republicans will cave to Donald Trump's wishes again. This bill is likely to pass in the next hour or so. It is unprecedented in that it takes literally from the working poor. It makes people in the country who are in the bottom 30% working hard to pay their bills.
Yeah, it's the biggest wealth transfer from the poor to the rich in modern history. I know. Also, classic Ro Khanna. Oh, this guy. Sometimes he's good. Sometimes he's awful. Like, I don't always yell at politicians on Twitter, but I have yelled at him multiple times. And, well, at least he responds.
Poorer, because it's stripping away health care from them, stripping away food assistance from them, and it is all in the name of giving tax breaks to the wealthiest. The top 60% in this country benefit. The top 20%.
And I genuinely think that this is what's driving me crazy. Is like a lot of Democrats, they love this shit. One, because it's a way for them to campaign in the midterms. It's a way for them to run on, look at how bad the Republicans are, like he, and then, not really do anything to fix it because they look at it as like electorally an advantage to them, right? But also because a lot of Dems are corporatists as well. Like, they fundamentally aren't, even though, yes, they voted against this bill, as far as like Democratic donors being many of the same corporate and billionaire donors who give to Republicans, like they share that. They have that in common. And we've seen what the Democrats have spent their time doing. They have spent their time defending Israel, screaming about people like Bob Villain, just saying the most racist shit about Zohran Mamdani. Like, they have certainly come together to be a show of force against a young progressive running to be the mayor of New York City. And then it's like, oh yeah, in the 11th hour, and then after the bill passes in both the House and the Senate, then they're like, this is bad. This is a bill that's gonna hurt the working class and the poor, and Republicans don't care about people. And you're like, man, this is all you guys got? Like, you fought Zohran for so much longer leading up to that campaign, which was a municipal, or leading up to that election, which was a municipal election. Then you have this bill. And the reason that we've gotten to this point, okay, and not because Chris Cuomo says AOC and the far left are how we got here. It's like, sorry, buddy, your sex pest bro lost, okay? You're not going to be able to use your sex pest bro to try to climb back into any type of relevancy. But it wasn't the far left. No, it was Democrats maintaining the status quo. It was Democrats being like, yeah, Orange man bad, but also we are not going to radically change your lives for the better here. We're just going to serve you up more of what you've gotten and what you're rejecting. And you know that, like, freaking Josh Shapiro or Pete Buttigieg, who has, 0% of black voters. I'm sorry, that was very funny when that came out. They're going to run in 2028, and it's going to be like, we're going to return to normalcy, and normalcy being what people rejected in the last election.
Percent in this country get 60% of the
Louis,
benefits.
thank you for the tier 1.
So on the one hand, you have this massive cut for Medicaid.
And you want to know the other thing that Democrats are purposefully not talking about? They're not talking about ICE. Like, they keep talking about the Medicaid cuts and the SNAP cuts. And yes, those are insanely horrifying. It's the largest Medicaid cut since the program's inception. And, the SNAP cuts being the biggest in modern history, and especially with hunger being at a 20-year high, it's devastating. But they're not talking about ICE. And the reason they're not talking about ICE is because the Democrats are really bad on immigration. And they feel like that's a sticky situation for them because they have moved to the right on things like abolishing ICE, on, just overall immigration swinging to the right because they were trying to like keep up with the Republicans. And so it's like this bill is going to explode funding for ICE. It's going to make it the most funded federal law enforcement agency in the history of the United States. And Democrats aren't talking about it. So that's why it's like, if you are a Democrat, if you are running for office or running to keep your seat, and at bare minimum, you are not running on a platform of abolishing ICE, of Medicare for all as a way to like genuinely combat this disastrous bill, then you don't deserve to be in power. Like people should not vote for you.
What, 17 million people it's estimated up to could lose their Medicaid. And you have this massive increase in ICE funding with President Trump, as you were all dealing with this on Capitol Hill, goes to what he calls Alligator Alcatraz to inaugurate the building of a new ICE jail, what the Florida governor...
It just makes you want to scream. It makes you want to scream. Like, I'm screaming inside. I'm screaming inside. So many things that I want to say to some of the most evil fucking people who have ever existed. Laura Loomer, I want you... Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, what fucking world are we living in? And the thing is like, okay, so you look at the topic of immigration. Most people in this country, regardless of their politics, do not support people being ripped out of their communities by ICE who are not criminals, okay? You have a lot of people who are like, yeah, deport criminals, all right? If somebody is a criminal and they come over here illegally, get rid of them. But Donald Trump has lost, he has had, he's taken a serious hit on the immigration issue because of how destructive ICE has been in communities, that people are seeing like, oh, they're not going after criminals. They're going after the guy who owns like the local taco restaurant and has been here for 20 years. And also most people in this country, like they do, even if they are to the right on immigration, they still support a legal pathway. They want to make it that people can pursue, can have a pathway available to them to be here, to be here legally. Who was the guy who was just deported today? Wasn't it or what's his name? He's like an MMA guy. Yeah, he's a boxer. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. arrested by ICE to be deported. He's a famed Mexican boxer. I think he's MAGA. And he is being deported. Yeah, like right after facing off with Jake Paul.
Chavez Jr. has been arrested by ICE in Los Angeles and slated for deportation. This comes just 5 days after he lost to Jake Paul in a fight in Anaheim. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement that Chavez Jr. was wanted on an active arrest warrant for his involvement in organized crime. He's married to a U.S. citizen.
Like, this was the type of person who voted for Donald Trump because he wanted him to go after criminals. And it's like, all right, well, now ICE has gone after you and you're being deported. And so it's one of those things that, like, if Democrats actually were the opposition party, they would recognize that most people in this country do not support ripping families apart. They do not support, like, going after children, going after people who, yes, they may not be, you know, they may not be documented, but are a part of communities across this country and are not criminals. And how this bill is going to be adding $175 billion to ICE's budget. Like, that is so much money. That is so much money. In just 4 years, the budget is going to increase by 4. Like, currently it's just under 10 billion, or sorry, by 3. Currently it's just under 10 billion, and in the next 4 years it's going to be $27 billion will have been added. And right now, if you were to fill every single bed in every detention center, I think it would be like it would be like 75,000 yeah, it would be 75,000 beds. And so what, they're just going to then build all of these detention centers everywhere to fill them. And so you're going to have in every town, in every city, you're just going to have all these detention centers, these prisons that are holding members of members of communities. That, like, you're going to go, oh yeah, they took they took our next door neighbors and they're just now at this horrific detention center. Like, it's just slavery.
Called a one-stop shop, a jail of leading up to 5,000 beds on an airstrip so people can be first detained and then deported.
Well, you have not only the massive increase in funding on for border security without any consideration of human rights. And you just had Mr. CarolineKwan, which was a case of the violation of human rights. But it's also a violation of many Americans' rights. I mean, Americans now are afraid of who they can befriend or who they can love. They're afraid of giving a coworker who may not have the right status a loan or assistance. They're afraid.
And you know what's also unpopular in this country? For-profit prison. Okay, people do not like for-profit prison. So the bulk of the billions in extra funding for ICE is going to be going towards private contractors who make a lot of money, who make a lot of profit off of something like building and building detainment centers, building prisons, and throwing people into them. So, like, these are the types of messages that Democrats, were they really the opposition to Republicans in this country, would be hammering over and over and over again. They would be talking about these billions going towards ICE, how ICE is targeting not criminals, but regular, they're targeting your neighbors. They're targeting your friends and family. That's what they're doing. And they're going to be building these inhumane, alligator Alcatrazes, which they've already built one, and throwing your neighbors into them because there are defense contractors, there are private contractors that are going to make a lot of money off of that.
Of going out and protesting if in their groups they may have people who are immigrants. We are creating in this country control over people, and that's impacting not just the rights of immigrants, it's impacting our freedoms as Americans.
Notice the news organization is reporting that President Trump met with Republicans yesterday and told them, I've told you there are 3 things you can't cut: Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And apparently one of the Congress members said, but you are cutting Medicaid. What is going on here? And this latest news we're...
Yeah, Amy Goodman saying, what is going on here? What is going on here? What is going on here?
Getting as this debate goes forward, that he's saying he can fix things by executive order.
Ro Khanna is so bizarrely inconsistent. I know he's a lib, but sometimes he can be great, other times awful. He's usually awful as it pertains to big tech because he is pretty aligned with Silicon Valley. So like he'll do things such as when Elon Musk and Donald Trump are fighting, he'll talk about how we need to reach out and bring Elon Musk over to our team. Like he is friendly with big tech and with Silicon Valley because the district that he represents in in the Bay Area. And he also just like pretty much every single congressperson is not of an anti-Israel position. So a lot of times when you see him just getting blasted for shit, it has to do with those things. Sure.
Well, he's hoping that he can, through rhetoric, just deceive people. The reality, as you pointed out, is 17 million people are going to be cut off health insurance. This cuts almost $1 trillion from Medicaid. It stops states from charging a provider tax, which helps them fund rural hospitals that the federal government reimburses. It caps the amount they can do that. Everyone knows that's going to hurt rural hospitals and healthcare services. It puts a huge amount of paperwork for people who want Medicaid, and we all know from the Arkansas experience that's going to mean less people on Medicaid. So it is making massive cuts, unprecedented cuts like we've not seen since 1965. And the president hopes he can just go out there and say that, well, it doesn't cut Medicaid, and they've delayed some of the cuts in the bill to not happen before the midterm elections. But our task.
Yeah, I know. This is just like, these people are so evil beyond belief. Like, you cannot believe how emboldened they are to be evil on Maine. It's like, yeah, okay, we see you being evil in Congress, but then going on Twitter, Derek Van Orden of Wisconsin's 3rd Congressional District tweeted something that said, a tweet that said 17 million people just lost healthcare, 18 million kids just lost school meals, 3 million Americans just lost food assistance. And he tweeted in all caps, yes. How are they so emboldened? That, like, this is, it's like the twofold, them legislatively fucking people over, but then also gleefully bragging about it online. I don't know how many different synonyms for evil I can come up with.
And the idea that 11 million, 12 million Americans may lose health insurance. I don't have any faith and confidence in the CBO. They're scoring. They're wrong half the damn time. I don't give any.
Who is this guy? Puffing a cigar while dismissing millions of people losing health care. Like, this is a clown country.
Worried about the CBO. You're not worried at all that Americans may lose their
Why does he seem like some villain out of, like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Literally villainous cartoon characters. Hey, like the one eyebrow goes up. Like, why are his wrists wrapped with bandages? I don't know. Maybe because hopefully someone tried to beat the shit out of him.
Just some Americans.
I don't know what to tell you, sweet cheeks.
Why should illegals be on Medicare? Shouldn't have it. We did a great job with it all. We did a great job. I appreciate it. The American people spoke.
And what is so important in moments like this is you have to counter these lies. You have to counter these lies. They are out here lying and saying millions of illegals will be kicked off Medicaid. That is not a reality. Undocumented immigrants are not on Medicaid. It's the shit that they say, every time they're like, oh yeah, illegals getting millions from the government. No, they're not. However, immigrants do pay into these systems that then they also do not get any of the benefits from. They do not receive benefits. Like, these are bold-faced lies, and it has to be called out over and over and over again. If you work in the media and some lying motherfucker is talking about illegals being kicked off Medicaid, you go, that is not true. That is a lie. That is a lie. And you go, yeah, it is true. Be like, show me where that is true, because I will show you how that is not true. You are lying. You are a liar. You are a fucking liar. You can't let them have any room to like just spew these lies.
The American people spoke, and the elected representatives spoke today. And what did we do? We supported and passed this one big, beautiful bill. So now you got to accept it and absorb it, because it's the right thing to do for the American people.
Oh my God, these...
Is to get the facts out there to the American people that these are the most devastating cuts, all to finance tax breaks for the billionaires. The reality is 60% of the tax breaks in this bill go to people over $220,000. And Amy, one thing to understand, this is so much worse than either the previous George Bush tax cuts or the Trump.
Is this because because they can't qualify it by not having paperwork? Because they are denied due to restrictions in federal legislation. Now, let me just say, okay, I believe that we should live in a country that takes care of all people. Okay, that takes care of every person in this country. I believe that everybody should have health care. So I am not a like, oh, they don't even get the benefits because they don't deserve the benefits. Like, no. What I'm saying is, first and foremost, these just straight up lies have to be dismantled every single time they are, one of these conservatives goes onto the media and spews this shit. And like, obviously, they go on Fox News, there's not going to be any pushback there because they propagate these lies. But it's like liberal media, liberal politicians, they should be blue in the face pushing back on these falsehoods.
Tax cuts, because those tax cuts were skewed towards the wealthy, but they didn't take away from the working class. This is making the working class worse off and enriching the richest in our society.
What do you say to Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska?
Fuck you! That's what I say.
This is not a good bill.
This is why I can't be a politician, though, because Amy Goodman would be like, CarolineKwan, what do you say to Lisa Murkowski? I'd be like, fuck you, Lisa Murkowski, suck my ass. And she'd be like, whoa, okay. I mean, all right. But maybe that's what we should be doing, okay? If you ask me, what do you say? I say, fuck you. I say, go fuck yourself. You piece of shit. You callous on the bottom of my foot.
Americans, but she got what she needed for the people of Alaska. What about these deals that are being cut, both for senators and for Congress members, House members?
Well, it really goes to how you view your role as a member of Congress or a senator. If I were to view my role as I only am going...
You know what, actually? That's how we should do politics now, all right? Let's just get it all out here in the open. No holding back. That's what I'm, if I run, that's what I'm running on, okay? I'm running on, I'm going to tell all these people to go fuck themselves. Tell them to suck my balls. Zilko, thank you for the 3 months.
Going to vote for everything that would benefit Silicon Valley, well, I should be lined up probably the first person to support this bill because the billionaires in my district are going to do very well. The trillion-dollar corporations are going to do very well. But my view is that I'm not there to just represent the corporations in my district. I'm right there to represent the working and middle class in my district, but I'm there to think about what's going to be good for America. And the reality is the central issue for America is we can't be a nation half prosperous and half in decline and in despair. And so I'm afraid that Lisa Murkowski views her role through parochial interests. And that's how they've gotten some of these holdout senators and some of these holdout members of Congress. But it is a betrayal of people, and it's why the trust in government is so low.
So some are saying the silver lining for Democrats is it could win them.
No, see, it's too complicated. Parochial interest, people don't know what that means. You go, Lisa Murkowski is a piece of shit. Okay? Lisa Murkowski is a piece of shit. She is a hypocritical piece of shit who, the people of Alaska should get her out.
In the midterm elections.
Lisa Murkowski, like all these other people who voted for the bill, they want you to die. That's what you have to say. You go, they want you to die. They are trying to kill you. Don't believe me? Look at how they just voted for this bill.
But many are asking, what do the Democrats offer? You have here in New York the state assemblyman, Zoran Mamdani, who has defied all the odds, had 1% name recognition, has now won the Democratic primary against the stalwart Governor Andrew Cuomo. And the significance of what he represented as he talked about sustainability, free budget.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, liberal media is still at it. That's why I was screaming yesterday at people like Aaron Rupar, who were being so dismissive about the outcome of the Sean Combs trial and the horrible effect that this will have on, victims of sexual violence seeking justice, both legislatively and also like the, changing of our cultural perceptions around abuse. And it's like, okay, well, you know what? Liberal media can't stop doing shit like this. This is in the New York Times. Yet another pathetic attempt to smear Zoran Mamdani by saying he identified as Asian and African American on college application. He doesn't consider himself black, but said the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background. Do you think this is important? Aaron Rupar, other liberals who were screaming at me about the fact that I cared for, I care about victims of sexual violence. And I also care about this disastrous piece of legislation. Do you care about, where's the outrage over the New York Times continuing to engage in the most bullshit smears against a socialist candidate in New York? Also, he literally is from Uganda. And he's Indian. What are we doing here? And then David Sirota wrote, as 17 million Americans were being thrown off healthcare to pay for billionaire tax cuts, America's largest newspaper deployed a whole team of reporters to break the truly big news. The college application of Africa-born South Asian mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. We see where their priorities are. And that is why we're done. We're done. We're done with the liberal media. Okay. We're done with liberal candidates whose priorities and politicians whose priorities are blocking somebody like Zoran engaging in these very transparent smear campaigns. It's like, you're not out here fighting the Republicans. You're not fighting on behalf of the working class. No, you're all phonies. You're being generous thinking that some of these fucks could point out Uganda on a map. Like, they know that this is bad faith. They know it's bullshit, but they're just trying to find anything. They are trying to dig up anything just like the Republicans, just like conservatives are engaging in smears against him by being like, look at Zohran Mamdani eating food with his hands. Huh, would you look at that? Yeah, an Indian guy from Africa identified as Asian and African American on a college application that does not like offer you a variety of options, like more nuanced options. Wow. Do you know how many times I would have to like pick one, white or just Asian? And I'd be like, well, I'm both. So which one am I going for today? Like, I remember when I was in high school and college, so often it was like, I could only pick one choice between white, between Caucasian and Asian. And I went, well, gee, I guess I'm white today.
Childcare, as he talked about what it means to afford to live in the United States, in our case, in New York City. What does he represent to the rest of the country, Congressmember Khanna, to your colleagues in the House?
He represents grassroots activism. He represents seeing people who have been unseen, who are struggling, who have economic discontent. He represents building a coalition around issues of affordability. And the Democratic Party would be wise to have a bold platform going into 2026. That means taxing the wealthy, taxing the billionaires in my district. It means child care, $10 a day. It means Medicare for all. It means a real plan to create good jobs in this country, especially when you have AI displacing entry-level jobs. It means 1,000 trade schools and free public college. We need to address the affordability.
It's not complicated to understand that Zohran's success is not just because he was opposing Andrew Cuomo, but because he was offering a platform built around making your life more affordable as a New York City resident. That he didn't just go, Andrew Cuomo bad, but he said, hey, here is this vision that I have that is absolutely doable. Things that we have either implemented before in New York City or that have been implemented elsewhere in the country. Look at these other areas that have government-owned grocery stores, that have free public transportation. Like, look at in the past when we had rent freezes. Like, that's what he offered to people, and they went, yes. Wow, a guy who's saying, here's how I'm going to make your life more affordable. Sign me up. And so it's not hard to get that for Democrats to, and of course they're not going to do this. The party is not going to do this because they are not the party of the working class. But to win back working class voters, you can't be like orange man bad. Look at these Republicans look at my baseball bat that I'm going to take a photo with and say, this is what I'm going to do to the big, beautiful bill. No, that shit it's stupid, okay? Nobody looks at that and is like, damn, that's my opposition party, dog. Yeah, vote for us or else. It's like, well, what are you offering us? That's what a lot of people said in the last presidential election. They said, well, you're offering me more of the same. Sorry, I'm going to go with the other guy, okay? Because again, there's such things as recency, voters will look at who most recently was in power, and if things weren't working for them, they go, no.
Crisis. We need to address the crisis of a lack of good paying jobs in America, and I call it a new economic patriotism. But the point is that Democrats need a bold economic vision. That to me is the biggest lesson of Mamdani. And I think these people who are attacking Mamdani gratuitous.
These people, name them out. Name them, Ro, because it's the fucking power players in the Democratic Party. They won't even endorse him. Chuck Schumer, Kathy Hochul, they will not endorse the Democratic candidate for mayor. So, yeah, dox them. I'm just kidding. Name them and shame them. We know who they are. Talk about how, the Democratic donors are all coalescing to like bring out the big guns and ensure that Mamdani does not win, even if that means Eric Adams again, even if that means Andrew Cuomo again, even if that means a fucking Republican, even though they're all the same. Anna, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs.
Are doing so because they fear a new generation that is more in touch with the economic struggles of people, that wants a bolder vision for the party. And frankly, they need to step aside to allow for a new generation.
And what do you say to President Trump, who has threatened to arrest and deport the U.S. citizen, Zoran Mamdani?
It's just so un-American. I mean, the remarkable part of America is New York can produce Zoran Mamdani, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Donald Trump. And as different as they are, we usually celebrate in this country the extraordinary multiracial democracy we are. And when Trump is threatened in any way, for him to lash out at people just undermines what this country stands for. And I was so disappointed. I have to mention this. There was a colleague of mine who criticized Mamdani as uncivilized because he ate food with his hands. Now, of course, we eat pizza with our hands and hamburgers with our hands.
Name them. Stop saying a colleague of mine. Name and shame.
But that reminded me of the British criticism of Gandhi and Indians and my grandfather, who was fought in India's independence movement, as being uncivilized because of the way they ate.
These people should not be protected.
It was America that actually helped India defeat colonialism, and it's sad to see echoes of colonial rhetoric here in the halls of the United States Congress.
Congressmember Ro Khanna, we thank you so much for being.
We're House Republicans.
They will pay. Dems on warpath versus deficit-busting MAGA budget that some in GOP don't like. It's like, okay, first of all, some in GOP, there were 2 members of the House Republicans who didn't vote for this bill. What you're doing here is MSNBC. You are providing cover for Republicans, also for Democrats. But when you say that some in GOP don't like, who, 2? 2 of them?
After some defections have passed Trump's spending bill. This is that big budget clash we've been following. It heads to the president's desk, where Donald Trump will be signing it into law tomorrow. We have the nonpartisan estimates here. The CBO says the bill adds $3 trillion plus the deficit. It'll slash over $1 trillion from health care and Medicaid. 10 to 12 million Americans ultimately could be booted off their health coverage. Funnels a lot of money to ICE and border enforcement, 100B over there. Trump and Republicans are celebrating however tough this was, longer, slower, more defections than they wanted. Ultimately, as they say, a win is a win. They set out to pass this thing. They lost some votes along the way. They even had some parts of it stripped by the parliamentarian, but they won passage today. Not without a fight. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries was on a warpath discussing the risks and the problems in the bill and doing what Democrats have done increasingly in the second Trump term, which is find...
Oh, they just love the theatrics. They're like, that's our House Minority Leader, dog. Look at him. He's on the warpath. He's fighting as hard as he can. Really? Because if that's as good as he can do, then... yeah, it's not good enough.
Different ways, sometimes symbolic, sometimes even physical.
Symbolic. Guess what? Symbolic opposition does jack shit. What are we doing here? Oh, look at the aesthetics here. Look at the symbolism. They did the same thing with Cory Booker getting up there, and then Cory Booker already like writing his book 2 seconds later about how he, gave the longest filibuster in history. They love to do that shit. That's what they do. This is what Democrats will do. Okay, they'll get up there, they'll do some theatrics, they'll have liberal media like just heaping praise upon them, and then they'll go, that's a job well done. Symbolic D's nuts.
To get up and show that they're fighting and to command some attention, even against Donald Trump, whose entire skill set is PR and attention. You're looking at some of the thunderous applause there as he continues.
Wow, yeah, this is really opposing Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who loves to do theatrics. Hakeem Jeffries getting up there and doing some theatrics. That's the real opposition here. They sure showed him. They sure got him. 7 minutes after the big, beautiful bill passed. Look at this shit. 7 minutes after the big, beautiful bill passed, I received a fundraising text claiming Hakeem Jeffries stonewalled Trump. Hey, can you chip in $5 today to help the Democratic Party keep showing Donald Trump what we're all about? Yeah, wow, he really stonewalled Trump. We want to show overwhelming support for his bravery. Wow. Wow. It's like this text coming after breaking news. The House passed President Trump's sweeping domestic policy bill after the GOP put down a revolt by conservative holdouts. House passes massive tax cut and immigration enforcement package, sending Trump a major legislative win. But thank God we got Hakeem Jeffries. I didn't see it, but I can tell without any sound that the Jeffries speech was a black hole of charisma. Yeah, because he's a black hole of charisma.
On the record-breaking speech, 8 hour plus, the longest speech in the history of the United States House. This began around 5 a.m. this morning.
I rise today in strong opposition to Donald Trump's one big, ugly bill.
And for those of you who are like, oh, so you're saying it's a bad thing that Hakeem Jeffries stood on the House floor and delayed the final vote on the budget bill for 8 hours so that people could have more time to call their reps. I'm saying that this being the extent of my opposition, dog, we're in hell. We are in hell. What the fuck does this even do? Where the fuck have Democrats been? Why the fuck do they love to, in the 11th hour, pull out the theatrics, pull out the, like, look at me standing on the floor speaking? Like, this is fundraising. Yeah, it's just straight up fundraising. And then they send out their text messages. I used to work in Democratic fundraising. We did this shit. We would be like, oh, so-and-so is about to do this. Great. Let's get the fundraising text ready. Let's get the mass communication ready to go to be like, hey, can you chip in $5 to show how we support our Democrats who are supporting us? And there is no denying how much time, how much media airspace has been taken up by Democrats coming after Zohran Mamdani. Have you thanked a Democrat for their service today? Is it not clocking to you that he's standing on business? Is it not? So giving up and doing nothing is the alternative. Yeah, buddy, because that's what I fucking have been saying. That's what I have said. Give up, do nothing. Yep. Yeah. If this is good enough for you, if Hakeem Jeffries at the 11th hour getting on the House floor to be like, we're standing up against Donald Trump. If that's good enough for you, then that's sad. Okay. And we're never going to have progress. If this is our opposition party, then, because to me, this is not good enough. I do not accept Democrats spending more of their time and energy and money to oppose progressives in this country, to arrest and punish pro-Palestinian supporters, to scream about some UK artist at a music festival that's not even in the United States, where these are the types of stories that dominate liberal media, that liberal politicians just can't get enough of. We deserve better than this.
Disgusting abomination. This reckless Republican budget is
And like, obviously it goes without saying, fuck conservatives, fuck the GOP, fuck Donald Trump. But we're talking about the party that is the opposition party. When we keep saying this, my opposition dog.
an immoral document, the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. The American people will not get over it, but they will get even next November. Extraordinary levels of corruption. Got some folks in this town, they go to church and they pray on Sunday. P-R-A-Y.
And the problem is that a lot of liberals will look at this stuff just like they did with Cory Booker's speech and like be satisfied with it. They'll go, wow, retweet to thank Hakeem Jeffries for standing up to MAGA. Like all of these symbolic gestures are good enough for a subset of liberals where they're like, job well done, sirs.
And then they come to Congress and pray P-R-E-Y on the American people. I'm not down with that kind of faith, no matter what the outcome is on this singular day. We're going to press on. Press on for the rule of law. Press on for the American way of life. Press on for democracy. We're going to press on until victory.
And you want to know the other thing? You want to know the other thing is that pisses me the fuck off about these people. They are talking about millions of Americans, going to lose health care. This is going to be disastrous for people who are disabled, for the elderly, for, whatever. These motherfuckers oppose Medicare for all. So these speeches are all performative. If they cared about people having health care in this country, then they would stop taking millions from insurance companies, from the insurance industry, and they would fight for a single payer system. Every single Democrat would get up there and say Medicare for all. It is so far past we need Medicare for all. So if Democrats really want to fight for people to have health insurance in this country, then at minimum, they need to fight for Medicare for all. My 70-year-old lived out mom said this was a joke and she hoped he lost his seat. She's a lifelong Democrat. Yeah, I mean, my mom is also like, has been deeply entrenched in the Democratic Party, and she's fucking sick of this shit too. She like a lot of Democrats who are enraged. Maybe it took the losing to Trump in 2024. Maybe it was before that, but they are recognizing that the Democratic Party is not truly an opposition party.
Is one. I yield back.
He yielded, but only after breaking the record. That marathon address went down pretty well, considering the Democrats are losing the budget battle here, which is expected. They don't have the same number of votes as Republicans. Some congressional math is.
Wow. Like J.D. Vance tweeting, in response to news you can use, the DNC is serving free tacos outside the RNC building on Capitol Hill from 12 to 2 p.m. today as a play on the Trump always chickens out slogan, aka taco. And J.D. Vance tweeted, we have the lamest opposition in American history. Like, yeah, he's not wrong. He's sitting there like giggling over the Democrats being like, oh my God, we are about to pass the worst piece of legislation in modern history that is going to decimate further the working class in this country. And that's our opposition dog. Like, fuck J.D. Vance. He's a vile little cretin. But yeah, I mean, the taco thing was outrageous. Like Taco being, Chuck Schumer mocking Trump for not having yet bombed Iran. Like not having gone to war with Taco. Trump always chickens out. Like Kamala Harris making fun of him because she's like, didn't he say he was going to build the wall? Where's that wall, Donald? It's like, what? You guys you're horrible. Like you're sickening me.
Is just that. But you see here Leader Jeffries flanked by Democratic colleagues who seemed genuinely energized. Yes, politics is full of show, but you see here there was some real enthusiasm today about waging this battle any which way they could. The Democrats did not have the votes to stop the bill. There is no magic strength or strategy that was going to change that. It was only a question of whether Republicans were going to lose enough of their own. And they lost some in the Senate and ultimately 2 in the House. Now, Jeffrey's intention was to force Republicans to also vote in the daytime Politico reports, using, again, the procedural levers they have to not stop the bill, but make sure that this still landed in the daylight with so many Republicans who are worried this is the kind of vote that might cost them their jobs if enough constituents realize what it does and what it does to health care, et cetera. The bill ultimately passing by 4 votes with, as mentioned, those 2 Republican defections. That is how we end the week going into American Independence Day weekend, and we're joined by Douglas Brinkley, presidential historian, Rice University professor, and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Eugene Robinson. Gene, your thoughts on what is now the ending of this round, the budget plan going to the White House tomorrow?
Well, look, this ended the way I always thought it would end in terms of the legislation being passed. The Republicans do have the majority in the Senate and the House, and Donald Trump wanted this bill passed, this big bill. It is big, and so it was going to pass. I mean, that was going to happen. The unexpected note was Hakeem Jeffries' speech, his 8-hour plus speech was an extraordinary thing in the House, and it certainly did serve to cause this vote to be held in the daylight and to bring attention on the fact that these majorities are very narrow in both the Senate and the House that Republicans have. And this is a deeply unpopular bill. When people learn what's in it, they don't like it at all. And so to that extent, to the extent it was possible for Democrats to be successful today, they were successful. They were not able to stop the passage of this legislation.
Yeah, they didn't stop the passage of the legislation because the Democratic establishment has aided and abetted Republicans taking, Republicans' right-wing takeover. Like, they have aided and abetted getting to the point that this piece of legislation just passed. So what is there to say? What is there to say where it's like there's socialism, but it's for the rich. It's corporate socialism. The Democratic establishment has been a thorn in the side of progressives who seek to regulate corporations and to make sure billionaires have to fucking pay their fair share of taxes. So I don't know, like this isn't something that this isn't just Republicans bearing the responsibility for this, despite them being the ones who voted for this bill. Obviously they can go to fucking hell. Every single one of them needs to be held accountable, and their constituents need to know that they voted for this and that they want them to die. But this is why progressives have been just tearing their hair out about the state of the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party is hostile to the working class in this country, because their donors are also big corporations and billionaires.
They believe in.
Okay. I feel like I can't really listen to these dummies anymore.
You guys want to play?
The fight against this bill should have started way before today. They were too busy doing nothing and shitting on Zoran. Yeah, the fight against this bill should have, it's not just standing up there because it's the Republicans doing and going, we oppose you. It's actually putting forth an agenda and striving to accomplish that agenda that is not pro-corporate and pro-billionaire. All right, here's a more perfect union. How the big, beautiful bill will transfer trillions from workers to Wall Street. So, okay, yeah, I know it's a lot of doom and gloom. I know today just feels like ass. But I'm not trying to, I don't want to make this all about Zoran. He's just one guy. Still has his general election to win. And I don't think he is the answer to everything. But I think we have to look at candidates like Zoran and campaigns like his and the energy that exists around it and go, we have to we need more of this, right? The momentum of reaching out to people across this country, in municipal elections and state elections and in national elections, and give them people who they are excited to vote for because they are political candidates who are genuinely offering policies and, agendas that are going to make life more affordable, whether you are, live in a rural area, whether you are in a big metropolitan city, whether you're in a red state or a blue state. Is Mamdani going for presidency? He's got to win the New York City mayoral election first. And he can only do so much when the people in his own party are racist, anti-Indian, Islamophobes. I know.
A guessing game? You got snacks. It's cool. Hey, you guys want to play a guessing game? I'm all right. Okay. I wish I had some prizes.
Met this strawberry. Also, he can't be president because he wasn't born. Yeah, sorry. Yes, he cannot be president. He could run for another office that is, beyond that of New York City mayor. But
festival in Ohio.
Wait, isn't he also? He's like 33, right? I think he's a year older than me.
And I'm asking a question that most Americans get wrong.
The CEO of Lowe's, the hardware store, how much more do you think he makes
AOC
compared
could
to
run
the
for
average
president, though.
Lowe's worker who is helping you find the screwdrivers or whatever?
3 times.
3 times more?
3.
Also 3. Okay, how much more do we think the CEO of McDonald's made than his workers last year?
I'm going to say 9.
The CEO of McDonald's made 1,212 times what his average worker made. 557 times more, 410 times more than the average Home Depot worker.
Regardless of their politics, there's one thing that most Americans agree on.
That's a lot of zeros.
CEOs make way too much money.
I'm a paycheck to paycheck woman. It's not fair. I'm a laundry lady. I make less than $15 an hour.
I was a manager at McDonald's.
Okay, so you've seen it from the inside.
Yep. Unfortunately, yeah.
But it wasn't always this way. If you go back to even just the mid-1960s, CEOs were making about 20 times as much as their workers. Today, that ratio has exploded to 200.
It's because they just work 290 times harder. That's the math.
190 times more. So what happened? This is the story of how the wealthy took a weird corporate trick that used to be illegal and used it to supercharge their wealth at the expense of their workers. And why this year it could get way worse.
Slap them for good luck.
Felix Allen used to work at Lowe's Home Improvement in New Orleans.
I started at $12 an hour. Straight up, there have been people who were alive, when Martin Luther King Jr. was working on the Poor People's Campaign, working at our store, making less than $15 an hour.
Those figures track with what most Lowe's workers make nationwide, about $33,000 a year. The company's CEO made 557 times more in 2023.
And we're going to be great. One thing that became frustrating pretty quickly was understaffing. Often there were too many customers and not enough people in red vests. It's stressful. It wears on you.
It's not just Lowe's. Workers at Home Depot, CVS, and Starbucks also say that understaffing is endemic nationwide. But all these companies are super profitable. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for them to just have enough staff scheduled on the floor to help their customers? That's just good business, right? Well, it used to be. Let's rewind back to 1979. That's when Lowe's graduated from a single North Carolina hardware store to a nationwide chain with a listing on the New York Stock Exchange. Back then, the CEO of a company like Lowe's basically had 3 options for what to do with their profits. They could put them back into the business, maybe open some new stores, or invest in some fancy inventory software. They might use some of it to reward all of those new shareholders with a payment called a dividend. Maybe they use it to invest in their workers, pay for them to learn a new skill, or at least hire enough of them at a high enough wage to help their existing customers. Or maybe they do a little bit of all 3. Remember this chart? This is the era that we're talking about.
The gap between the average big company CEO and their typical worker was about 25-1.
Corporations were largely reinvesting.
Yeah, but it's going to trickle down any day now, okay? The more that CEOs make, the more that it trickles down to the company's employees. To us, the people, right? It's coming. It's coming. Just wait. Any day now. I know it's been 40 years, but that bull's been turned loose.
Investing in their innovation process, and in some cases, because of strong unions, paying their workers living wages.
But then something shifted in American corporate culture.
You know what? Actually, what's more accurate is that indeed we've seen, well, not trickle down, but stream upwards. Like what's a stronger word for trickle? Just full blast stream, heavy stream. A gush upwards, a heavy squirt upwards towards those at the top. That's what's happened.
Sure. It would eventually lead to the explosion of CEO pay that we've seen since then.
It was a complete revolution in the way American companies were run. There's a scene in the 1991 Danny DeVito movie Other People's Money that actually does a pretty good job showing this new way of thinking.
Make the stockholders richer. Are you going to liquidate New England Wire and Cable? And if so, what about the people who work here?
Danny DeVito plays a corporate raider who is trying to convince the shareholders of a small New England cable company to sell him their shares so that they can cash out when he liquidates the company.
You invested in a business, and this business is dead.
Geezer's kind of...
Let's have the...
Yeah, it's a double entendre, okay?
Intelligence to sign the death certificate to our employees,
Yo,
or our community.
geezer.
What will happen to them? I got 2 words for that. Who cares?
He tells the shareholders that the company has done them wrong by not
geezer,
prioritizing
geyser.
their payouts.
They sucked you dry. And our stock, 1/6 what it was 10 years ago.
DeVito is styled as the kind of lovable villain of this movie, but he actually represents a way of thinking that was taking over American business at the time.
The way that we have thought about the purpose of the corporation since the Reagan Revolution is to make as much money as possible for shareholders.
We're going to turn the bull loose.
I refer to this as shareholder primacy.
In the movie, the shareholders eventually agree to sell to DeVito's character over the objections of the company's CEO. In real life, shareholders found a way to make sure that CEOs always put their interest above everybody else's. Instead of paying CEOs a salary in cash like workers at the rest of the company, start paying them in company stock. The idea spread like wildfire.
Well, if one CEO starts to be paid in this new structure and you see their compensation go up very rapidly, that's going to spread very quickly across the entire ecosystem. It's like keeping up with the Joneses.
Something else happened when CEOs started getting paid in company stock, and it goes a long way towards explaining why companies like Lowe's won't schedule enough workers to help customers, or pay their employees like Felix a living wage. Remember those 3 options that Lowe's and other companies used to have for what to do with their profits? Well, in 1982, right before CEO pay started to really take off, they added a 4th option: buying shares of the company's stock. Here's how it works.
Let's say also what's wild is that because of the existing corporate structures, it means that CEOs, top CEOs, just because of the positions that they're in, they can get these massive compensation packages, and it doesn't matter how good their performance was or what the market value is. Do you think that that goes the same for, any of the employees of the company that are not the CEO? No, of course not. So it's funny because it's actually in contrast to the supposed discipline of the market, right? That, we're letting the bull loose. That was what, turning the bull loose, the image that Reaganomics sought to put into Americans' minds, and yet CEOs make a shit ton of money regardless of how the company does.
Each share of Lowe's stock sells for $100 on the open market. Then the CEO of Lowe's decides to use some of the company's profits to buy back some of those shares. Now, all of a sudden, with fewer shares remaining, each share is worth a bunch more. Ta-da!
If this is reading to you like some kind of scammy corporate magic trick, you're not wrong.
For much of our history, stock buybacks were illegal.
The lawyers of big companies knew that a company could be accused of manipulating its market price if it went ahead and did stock buybacks.
That changed when Ronald Reagan was elected in 1980 on a platform of deregulation, and he picked a Wall Street executive to be the head of the SEC. And that SEC chair decided that allowing stock buybacks would help companies that wanted to enrich their executives and their shareholders without really having to do anything to improve their performance.
The Schoolhouse Rock theory of investing holds that in order for a company's stock price to go up, they have to actually do something, like increasing their pollution. I mean, their sales.
Looks as if their sales are going up sky high. Better call my broker and tell him to buy.
But with buybacks, corporations can raise their stock price without actually doing anything. I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of the Lowe's CEO. Nearly 80% of your annual pay is in company stock, and you get a $3 million bonus if the stock price hits a certain level.
Your workers created nearly $7 billion in profits last year.
What do you do with the money? Use it to make a bunch of your part-time workers full-time so they can help customers? Gotta pay the shareholders their dividends. Don't want to get fired. Use it to pay your employees a living wage so they stick with the company longer. Or use it to do a massive stock
think of it
buyback,
11 months.
which literally makes the shares that you own worth more and ensures that you get that $3 million bonus.
Why wouldn't they? If you put an incentive structure in place where CEOs legally manipulate the market price of the stock that directly and indirectly affects their own compensation, why wouldn't they?
They can inflate their own paychecks without having to do anything to improve company performance.
Stock buybacks are a huge reason why the pay gap between CEOs and their workers jumped in the 80s and 90s and has stayed high ever since.
You've seen consistently companies like Lowe's or Walmart or Starbucks where workers have been organizing. They have billions of dollars going out the door in stock buybacks. They say they cannot afford to pay their workers even a very, very low basic wage.
They're literally buying back their own stocks. I mean, it's hard for me to understand, but it's clear that if they're doing that, they got some coin to throw around, and they're getting paid however many hundreds of dollars per hour. And yet, you know, my coworker who has worked at Lowe's for 20 years is making less than 15. I mean, it's almost like laughable. It's obviously incredibly offensive.
When companies started paying their CEOs
He's
in
like,
stock,
I laugh so I don't cry. Like, it's very funny because of just how insane it is, how ridiculous it is, but also, fuck.
It helped kickstart a massive nationwide.
Yeah, I think More Perfect Union makes really good vids too. I feel like they have, you know, they capture your attention. They are very clear on message. They're easy to digest. It's the type of thing where, like, honestly, if you're like, how do I get my liberal or conservative or whoever family member to like understand, send them something like this.
Transfer of wealth from workers to CEOs and shareholders. More recently,
and you know what? A majority of Americans in this country are in favor of raising taxes on corporations. And once upon a time, the corporate tax rate was much, 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 much higher than it is now. The tax rate on top earners was higher than it is now, which means that we do not have to be on this continuous downward slide where corporations' tax rate is essentially nil. So, like, I think it's important to understand when, like, oh yeah, things are real shit right now. And it's not that this country's ever been perfect, but this is still in the scheme of things, corporate, the ability for corporations to just massively exploit their workers and taxpayers in this country, like that is something that is a result of the last really 40 years. So if this was not the case before, then it can be not the case again. You know what I'm saying? But that's why, you know, the issue with the Democrats is that the Democrats are also the party of corporations, the party of billionaires, because those are their donors. So in order to be able to, like, effectively stand up to corporate power in this country, we have to have a real opposition party. We can't be relying on Democrats who these are their donors. This is who, you know, gives them money and keeps them in power. And so they are going to protect those interests, you know?
That wealth transfer has gone into overdrive thanks to one specific law.
Another huge turning point was the 2017 tax reform.
The biggest tax cut, biggest reform of all time.
Now, as Trump and the Republicans are working overtime to make these tax cuts permanent in his big, beautiful bill, it's easy to see how it'll supercharge this wealth transfer from workers to CEOs, because we already have all the evidence.
The biggest giveaway in that 2017 reform was the slashing of the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%.
This change gave corporations a huge amount of cash.
Here, I'll link this.
Company leaders promised that they would use their windfalls from that tax cut and funnel it almost immediately into workers' hands through wage increases and bonuses.
Where you're going to start seeing a lot more money in your paycheck.
Well, what happened after that bill was passed? A handful of companies gave some modest bonuses, but then that was it.
Can you guess what they did instead?
It's not just a big year for earnings. You know, it's a big year for buybacks.
Are expected to hit a record $1 trillion this year.
Companies announcing big share buyback programs along with their earnings reports.
Of course,
Big,
the irony
beautiful
of it being named the
buybacks.
Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is that very, very little of these savings went to the workforce. You know, many people, including myself, were predicting that we would see buybacks as a main way that companies were utilizing the gains, but we saw it in levels that I didn't even expect.
It really changed the norm for stock buyback spending.
When we did a big tax cut, and when they took the money and did buybacks, that's not building a hangar, that's not buying aircraft, that's not doing the kind of things that I want them to do. We didn't think we would have had to restrict it because we thought they would have known better.
Clearly, they don't know better. And even if we take Trump at his word here that he didn't know companies were going to do all these buybacks with their tax savings, it raises a really important question. Why is he about to run the exact same play? Trump's big, beautiful bill gives corporations another massive tax cut, but it doesn't put any limits on buybacks or tax them more aggressively, which was something that one of his own cabinet members, Marco Rubio, floated back in 2019.
We do want to create a preference for reinvesting it back into your business to increase productivity, innovation.
And do you want to guess why Rubio's buybacks tax isn't on the table this time around? Because days after he merely suggested it, Wall Street investors and their protectors in Congress threw a proper little fit. One investment advisor told CNBC it was part of a war on wealth. Another called it an attack on democracy in a Financial Times op-ed.
I'm not sure what the problem is we're trying to solve here. Yes, there have been stock buybacks too. I just don't get this, the alarm over a perfectly normal, healthy aspect of a market economy.
Legislators saying we know better how to deploy corporate capital than the managers in the business.
Fast forward 6 years, and there is not one peep of buybacks opposition among Republicans. So that's the story of how CEOs ransacked America's corporations and took everything for themselves. It used to be a literal crime. Now it's just business as usual. And it's no wonder that so many Americans feel that the politicians who let this happen aren't representing them.
Do y'all feel comfortable sharing who you voted for in the last presidential election?
Didn't vote. Didn't like the choice.
Didn't vote. If you had a candidate that was running on a platform of capping CEO pay, would you have voted?
Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let them know what it's like for us regular people.
I didn't vote for a president. If there was a presidential candidate out here.
Caroline, how do we get through this? I'm so tired. Oh, I know. And it's perfectly normal to feel exhausted, but you can't let that exhaustion just take you to a place of like total unending despair of which you are not able to pull yourself out of. So honestly, look, what I always say is as just normal human beings trying to make it through the day, like we have to have outlets that are that help us to keep our spirits up, like separate from our political activities, right? Because if all you do all day is consume politics and spend your time in I don't know, political spaces, like it's so exhausting. And even organizers, you know, who this is what they spend their lives like trying to organize people towards change, like they will tell you that you have to protect your peace and your sanity, and you can't just, if you feel your soul being sucked out of you, yeah, it's okay to stare into the void, just don't let it in. Yeah, so take breaks, but also, you know, I think for me it's like, look, I changed my mindset on when I used to be super lived up. I was like, oh, anyone in this country who has voted Republican or is not of my politics is just a lost cause. I think ultimately it's not viewing people as a lost cause. I think it's understanding that people can be brought back, that they can, they have the capacity to engage and to, even if they voted for Donald Trump, doesn't mean that they're going to vote for horrible candidates for the rest of their lives, but they have to have something to believe in, So I think it's like finding exciting progressive candidates and helping to prop them up. And understanding too that change starts at a local level. I think it's overwhelming when you are looking too big, right? When you're like, okay, but the presidency, or, looking at politics from like the top versus looking at the bottom. Thanks, Caroline Chapin, keeping up with all this since my college days back in 2016. It does get exhausting when the Dems literally go against progressives. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but it's figuring out, like, how do you channel your rage, right? How do you channel your rage? I was so enraged yesterday, and I decided, I was like, okay, I need to put this energy somewhere. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to connect with, this was in regards to the Sean Combs trial. I was like, I'm going to connect with a nonprofit that helps victims of sexual violence. And I'm going to figure out, like, how I can help, like what I can do here, where I can take this energy and actually, like, put it somewhere good and not just simmer in my rage.
You're talking about capping CEO pay at, I think what you said, like 3, 4, 5 times. Would you support that candidate?
Yes.
It's not something that you hear politicians talk about a lot. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, the big donors, a lot of previous politicians, their wives, their families that are all capitalizing off of this money. There's a whole lot of votes out there available for purchase.
But you think that, like, regular folks, people who are working for a living.
And remember, you're not outnumbered. We're not outnumbered. We're out-organized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely vote for a president like that.
Ahem. Okay. Oof. Oofda. All right. Okay. We're going to move to... Okay. All right. What time is it? 2 o'clock. We're gonna look at... Okay. We are gonna look at this CNN exclusive. Listen to gaming. Please, gaming already. Listen to what an alternate juror in the Sean Combs trial had to say. Okay, next story we got here. Cheryl Tacular, thank you for the 3 months. Thank you. College students, please see if your campus or a campus near you has an SDS chapter. You can whisper me for the link to our website, which can tell you how to start one. Out-organized by 40 years of corrupting judges and shifting the Overton window. Yeah. Beyond simmering, I'm stray sous vide cooking at 280 degrees. Yeah, I I say over and over and over again that you have to have outlets outside of consuming politics, because I think that it can just leave you in a very negative headspace a lot. I mean, genuinely, the way that news is framed and the way that the way that news is presented, it is very negative. It seems to just be bad stuff all the time. And there's a lot of bad things going on, but I don't know. You know what I've thought about? I'm like, I need to have almost like how Will does Neff News, where it's all silly news stories. I need to have like here's some good news of the day. Like here's something that's good. It's just hard because when you look at what is this? The only news picked. Perfect use of children, using them to help, using their big heads to cook food on. Phil DeFranco does that sometimes in his videos. I think throws in occasional good stories. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I try to like throw in like fun stuff happening in pop culture, even though a lot of what happens in pop culture is also really bad. But you know, try and have some variety. It's like, hey, this movie's coming out and it's going to be awesome. Never kill yourself. When's the last time a dog was elected mayor in a small town? We need one of those. More dogs as mayors, please. More dogs as mayors. There's a guy on YouTube I watch now that does a monthly recap, so I want to live a little more. Yeah. Yeah, I've kind of been looking at how Phil DeFranco, as I've been restructuring my YouTube and trying to like do a new YouTube format for my videos, I've been watching more of Phil DeFranco's stuff. I mean, obviously he has a whole team and he puts out videos every single day, and like that's his thing. And I also have my politics are more to the left of his, but just kind of the format of how he presents news stories. And he seems to have a spectrum of news. So I'm not trying to be Phil DeFranco, but more of like the format of his YouTube videos and how he basically like, okay, here's 5 big stories of the day, but not every, I hate Phil DeFranco. I think sometimes I like his takes. I agree with his takes. And then again, other times I'm like definitely much more to the left than him. But anyway, hate is a strong word. Yeah, that is true. You know, he doesn't really have. I think one thing that people are bothered by with Phil DeFranco is that he kind of tries to not give his opinion on a lot of things. Like he doesn't want to. I think he doesn't want to risk like alienating areas of his audience, you know? So I think he kind of gets hit with like the fence sitter label. So, you know, I definitely am more takey in my takes. He definitely doesn't want to fully commit because of losing some of his audience. Yeah, so he kind of presents it more as like, here's the story, and less of like, here's my opinion. Whereas for me, it's definitely like, oh yeah, no, I am it's very clear that I am ideologically a leftist, because my commentary on whatever news I'm talking about, like, absolutely my beliefs and my opinions are front and center. A positive story in that is that Tiny Chef is saved. Wait, what? Tiny Chef announces he has been saved in new Instagram post. The team is getting ready to turn the tiny cameras back on in Chef's tree stump home because you all have saved Tiny Chef. Oh, the Tiny Chef show. We promise this is our last call to action, asking you to sign up for Chef's fan club if you haven't yet already. Link in bio. The team is getting ready to turn the tiny cameras back on in Chef's tree stump home because you all saved Tiny Chef. The outpouring of love messages, fan art, and donations have truly meant the world to the team. We are excited to get back to work and capture Chef's next journey from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. Let's frickin' go. Someone's saying best news that I've heard all week. Oh, finally, some good news. I'll take a crumb, please. Did you see the little video made for the cancellation? I did not. Wait, send it to me. I want to see it. I don't know what this is, but chat seems happy, so I'm happy. I mean, come on. Tiny Chef. Gotta make you happy. There's always good in the world, chat. Remember that? Yes, but just remember, like, good news stories, they just don't get as much attention. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, we live in a world that thrives off of, if it bleeds, it leads, you know, where negativity and things that fill you with rage are just very powerful. Okay, Tiny Chef. Here we go. Here's the video.
Yes, hello, Tiny Chef here. Hey, Black Wodan, Black Ewan. Ready to cook up some more episodes? I got a brilliant bracket. Cancelled? Bloody amazing cancelled. But listen, Blueberry had training, but she'll behave on set, I promise. But I have black ears that will blow your minds. I've been... But wait, brother Blebby. But about Wob.
No, you guys, but then the good news is that Tiny Chef was saved.
Cake. Patty. Cake. Where? But all my friends.
Oh, my friends.
Right. I understand. I love you too. Bye.
This is so sad, though. Yeah, but how much more sad would it be knowing that Tiny Chef was not saved? This is how I imagine Farley's inner voice sounds like. Wait, this is so... This is really depressing. But, again, we started with the good news. And the good news is that Tiny Chef has been saved. The little Tiny Chef. And so what this shows you is, like, what happens when people, you know, when they organize and they do something like raise their voices and try and ensure the saving of everyone's favorite tiniest chef. I had to step back from so many friendships over the last few years. I want to not have to talk about politics all the time, but I need to be around like-minded people for the vibe. Totally. I got so tired of being around people who were absolutely clueless. It seems I had no connection anymore. Imagine I said this 10 minutes ago. LOL. No, I got you. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a person who I have to ideologically be aligned with people, but also not want to talk about politics all the time. Why would you make me cry like this on a Thursday afternoon? But Tiny Chef is saved, you guys. Look, Tiny Chef ordering Pineapple Pizza, new video.
Tiny Chef again. I know, but I just love it so much. Okay, What's your wow's brilliant pizza this time? Mushrooms, burritos, jalapenos, plus the cashew cheese, blend pineapples. Yes, pineapples. Who is pizza without pineapples?
Me, Tiny Chef.
Prime. Yes, just to do it. Yep, just leave it on the front doorstep as usual. Okay, never so much, bye. Okay, back to schooling.
Blow it.
Nope. Oh, my buckets. Look at that fruit. Next. Okay, that's enough swallowing, Chevy. Good grief. Blow my kidding. Get over here, phone.
Oh. See, aren't you so glad that there's at least still a bright spot in the world? Everything important that has been said about this video already, but I haven't seen anyone mention that Tiny Chef is singing Not Like Us at the start. Wait. Oh. See, this is why we have to fight for art, okay? We have to fight for creative people to get to keep being so creative. Because this kind of stuff is a bright spot in this world, you know? Makes people happy. It brings joy. Art is so important. I really do believe that. I do believe that because art is a way for us to, entertainment, art, it's crucial. It's crucial to our world. And don't ever if you're a person who is politically inclined, that you are very in the know, whatever, don't ever feel guilty about consuming entertainment because it is crucial to life being enjoyable. You know, it provides a light even in the darkest hellscape. Yeah. You know, it helps you decompress. It helps you, it can help you feel connected. Butterfly, blah, blah, blah. Butterfly. Yeah. I went to our art museum last week, and my main takeaway was, man, humans just pick something and go all in creatively. Yes, entertainment is very important. Yep. It taps into our universal soul. Yep. Okay. Is Asmongold entertainment? Not to me, but to a lot of people, although unfortunately, entertainment in coming at the expense of a lot of vulnerable people. So, Sulio, thank you for the 15 months. Art is how we express our unique sameness. Why would you bring that evil name? We were talking about Tiny Chef. Okay. Anyway, I want to cover this next story, which is obviously we covered the Sean Combs trial outcome yesterday, and then today CNN has an exclusive with an alternate rural juror, an alternate juror in the Sean Combs trial. And I think this will confirm a lot of what I already said yesterday, but like just where the prosecution failed and where the jury also just unfortunately is too reflective of a society that has a long way to go in understanding something that is as endemic to our society as abuse. So sorry, this is not fun, but I think it's important to
Alternate
cover.
juror who was in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. George is joining us right now. This was 7 weeks of your life, hearing all of this testimony. You were an alternate. You did not deliberate, but did you agree with the final verdict?
I understood the final verdict.
What were those vibes? Already off the bat. Yikes.
I think if I, because I took a copious amount of notes overall. I took 350 pages worth of notes. Because at the end, we weren't told who was an alternate, who was the main juror until literally the last second when they were reading when the judge was reading his entire statement at the end. It was like the first 12 of you are the jurors, the last 5 are the alternates. So we didn't know, even in the jury room, no one treated everyone, we all were equal because we didn't know who was who.
Would you have acquitted him on RICO?
I think reading all my notes and looking back at the evidence, I probably would have reached the same conclusion as the other jurors.
What was it about that charge?
I don't, the thing with the...
All right, so just a recap for anyone who missed my coverage of this yesterday. Sean Combs was acquitted on the most serious charges, which included sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit racketeering. He was found guilty of the charge of transportation to engage in prostitution, but the sex trafficking and racketeering charges, unfortunately, the jury just they didn't buy it. They did not accept the prosecution's argument, and they did not believe the testimony of the witnesses, namely Cassie and Jane, who were the ex-girlfriends of Sean Combs. They did not believe that despite being physically abused, that Combs coerced them into sexual activities.
When because we were asked and the judge had instructed us that we have to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Mm-hmm. And I think there was always...
What is an alternate juror? An alternate juror is someone who is selected to be part of the jury, but does not participate in the jury deliberations unless they have to replace one of the regular jurors. So they do this in case something happens with a member of the jury who is participating in the deliberations. So that way they don't have to just start from scratch, right? Like if somebody has to drop out halfway through, then you can't bring in someone new who isn't privy to the first half of the case.
A little bit of doubt in people's mind. And I think it was a tough case to prove, especially the first one. And there was always a little bit of doubt there, even from the beginning.
Why did you doubt?
I think some of the charges, some of the witnesses, if you look at it one way, but then...
I don't know if it was from your stream, but one of the lawyers said this is partially a good thing because now victims can get monetary asset claims from since they didn't get taken with RICO charges, and plaintiffs won't have difficulties getting them like the ones with Weinstein are having a hard time getting. Yeah, I guess looking for a bright spot in that, potentially these civil lawsuits that are currently, that have been filed against Sean Combs and that may continue to be filed against him, that it could end up being better for the plaintiffs.
When you were listening to the defense, you could see it their way as well.
Were there any witnesses that made you think, I don't believe this?
There was one.
Dr. Slippy Fist, thank you for the tier 1.
I think unanimously we kind of all said wow. It was almost like watching TV. Mm. It was when I think her name was Dawn Richard, that one. Mm-hmm. when she on cross-examination. I mean, I never saw such a cross-examination. It was very impressive to watch.
What was it about it?
I think just how the defense, got into her and really made her, look very.
So Don Richard is an artist who was previously a part of Danity Kane and then also Dirty Money. So these were two groups that Combs had created. And her testimony buttressed that of Cassie's. And the defense, so Combs had like 8 different lawyers on his defense team. And the lesser known members of the team were the ones who went up against the witnesses that they essentially looked at and went, oh, we can much more easily humiliate them on the stand. So Dawn Richard was she was cross-examined by Nicole Westmoreland, one of Combs's defense attorneys, and she basically was like, she just went in on her and said, after Dawn had mentioned like a death threat that had been made against her, Westmoreland was very sarcastic in her response, was like, oh, the death threat that you didn't recall on 7 different occasions. So, a lot of money means that you have the sharkiest of the defense sharks on your team. And it just was like they called 34 witnesses throughout this trial, which seems to have almost had actually a blowback effect where witnesses who were seen as less serious than Cassie, people like Cassie and Jane this was like a black mark on the prosecution's argument. You hear this random alternate juror talking about how Dawn Richard, who was a witness called for the prosecution, was like basically a joke.
Very not credible. I mean, I even wrote in my notebook that it was like a takedown.
Really? And that was pretty early on.
That was pretty early on.
From the opening statements, did you have a mindset of who you thought had a better case?
No. I think overall, from the way I look at it, both sides presented really good. Both sides presented themselves well. We were very impressed with the prosecution and the defense, how they, the professionalism, how they carried themselves. I mean, it was really good lawyering, as they say.
Racketeering is notoriously a complex case. Did you feel that the prosecution presented enough evidence to support that there was even an enterprise?
I think they did the best that they could, but I think it was a tough case to prove.
Why?
I mean, when you look at the charges, kidnapping, arson, forced labor, the government had one side, but then the defense, they had some pretty good rebuttals to it. So I mean that I think added some doubt always, and I think in people's mind.
You didn't hear from some of the people the government said were co-conspirators, like employees,
like Christina Karam,
for example, or D-Rock. Yeah. Did that affect your?
Yeah, man. So a lot of legal analysts have looked at this case now and gone that basically assessed that the jury looked at this as prosecutorial overreach, namely because of the racketeering charge. Racketeering conspiracy is notoriously very difficult to prove. It does not refer to a specific crime. Instead, it refers to the engaging in an illegal scheme. Like it refers to the existence of a criminal enterprise. And it's very hard to prove that. And a lot of people's association with racketeering is that of the mob. So the cultural baggage around something like racketeering makes, is an added obstacle of trying to prove something like that in a court of law. And genuinely, I think I think because the jurors never heard any direct testimony from people who the prosecutors claimed participated directly in the enterprise. Excuse me. Oh, God. Because none of the witnesses that they called, of the 34 witnesses they called, the jurors didn't hear direct testimony from many of them who were allegedly participants in this enterprise. So former assistants, employees, you know, people who were around Combs in, you know, in a position where he was directing them to do things that were criminal in nature. And that is pretty unusual for a racketeering trial, to not have direct testimony from individual witnesses who the prosecution is saying like participated in the enterprise. So like, you know, bad example would be someone being like, yeah, that guy there, or he told me to commit, you know, he told me to extort this person. He told me to like get money from this person or like distribute drugs. And they're like, is this person sitting in the room? And they're like, yeah, he's right there. And so because the prosecution's, it was just the weakest charge, like it was the weakest part of the case, but it was also the most serious charge that was brought, and also one that they you know, built a lot of the case around, where it was like, look, this wasn't just Sean Combs as an individual piece of shit. Like, this was a criminal enterprise that he was the head of, and he, you know, was committing and directing people to commit crimes that ranged from sex trafficking to arson to bribery to extortion, etc. And so if a jury perceives that the prosecution is overcharging, then it's going to turn them away from other charges that have been brought forth. Have we heard any updates on the sentencing for the found guilty charges? No, that will not happen until October.
Or thoughts about the case?
I don't think so, no.
Would you have wanted to hear from them?
In all honesty, if the thing I'm most upset about with the jury and with the prosecution is the failure to recognize that Sean Combs was guilty of sex trafficking. And I think the reason, well, there's a couple reasons why that charge failed to stick. One being that the average person's understanding of sex trafficking is heavily based on what they have seen in the media, like what their understanding of trafficking is based on how it has been, like how it's been depicted in popular culture. So like not understanding that someone like Cassie or Jane could be victims of sex trafficking, even though they were in a relationship with Combs. And for Cassie, it was, over a decade. Like, sex trafficking is forcing someone to commit a commercial sex act, coercing them into sexual activities. And the other thing is that our understanding of abuse, we still don't have a just at large a nuanced understanding of abuse, where a lot of people cannot understand or believe that somebody who is in an abusive relationship does not have consent in that relationship. And so it doesn't matter that text messages between Cassie and Combs seem to show her as like being in love with him, as like the defense painted her needy and like showing that, oh, Cassie was in love with him. And that's why she did these things, because she wanted to, rather than Cassie did these things because Sean Combs held the power in this relationship. And this was an abusive relationship, which meant that she was not actually consenting to these sexual activities due to the fact that he was, he was abusive towards her and the enormous power difference. People don't understand power dynamics. Yeah.
We always thought that maybe we would hear from them, but maybe we also understood maybe why they wouldn't be called.
Why?
Because maybe they didn't want to testify, or they wouldn't really be proving the case, or maybe it would be not advantageous to be called. So, but honestly, we were just waiting till the end, until when the judge gave his instructions and how to interpret the law. Because, I think everyone really didn't have anything made up, their mind made up or in any way. It was really, everyone was waiting to see how, the definitions and how everything was going to be interpreted and what they were to be looked at. Exactly.
So important.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the sex trafficking cases, because of court charges. Obviously, Cassie Ventura testified visibly pregnant for days.
Yes.
How did her testimony impact you in your understanding of the case?
It did. We listened, we listened very intently. It was, I think, 5 days or whatever of thing. And, it was very riveting. And it was very riveting testimony and very credible testimony.
You believed her?
I mean, I think we did. I think we did. I mean, she wouldn't have done all this just to come up there and, lie about everything. So
then this is now what I'm referring to as the disconnect between, yes, we believe her. We believe that she was harmed by Diddy. But we don't believe that she was a victim of sex trafficking. We believe that he physically abused her and that there were some really horrible moments in that relationship. But we don't believe that ultimately she was coerced into these sex marathons, and she was coerced because of the nature of this relationship being an abusive one.
So no, I don't think even the defense didn't come out and say or anything like that.
Did the money that
defense lie about everything? So no, I don't think even the defense didn't come out and say or anything like that.
Is he talking about how the defense didn't say she was lying? The defense's argument was that Cassie and Combs' relationship was a modern love story. That Cassie, her testimony was all about how she, for a decade, was forced into these horrific drug-fueled sex marathons, that Diddy was physically and sexually abusive towards her. Like, that was what she laid out in full detail in the days that she testified. And the defense, in the cross-examination, pulled up text messages, tried to point to other evidence that actually Cassie was very much so a willing participant of the, yes, sordid, yes, unorthodox, but ultimately consensual sex that happened in the decade they were together.
The money that they talked about in terms of a civil settlement she received, did that color her testimony for you at all?
I don't think so.
Bro,
No.
the defense didn't even, the defense didn't want Cassie like they didn't want people to be able to see that Cassie was 8 months pregnant on the stand because they were worried that it would be too emotionally persuasive, that people would see this 8 month pregnant woman and believe everything that she said.
Oh, I don't think so, no.
Did you look at the defendant, Diddy Combs, differently after her testimony?
No, I didn't really look at him too much. I mean, I always looked at him because my point of view was just literally at him. Like some people are on the side, but I was more in the corner. So I was always like staring at him, but I don't think he was mostly just.
Look, I know this guy is probably nervous. He's acting nervous. This is probably the biggest platform he's ever been on. But the reason I'm listening to this is because I do believe that his mentality is reflective of the jurors who voted to acquit Sean Combs on the most serious charges. And I think it's just important to like break down, without having heard yet from any of the jurors who sat, you know, who were actually a part of the deliberations, why Combs was not found guilty of the most serious things he had been charged with.
Very composed and talking with his lawyers and very in control, it seemed like. You know, because I think I'm not really familiar too much with cases and I don't really follow, you know, cases in court, so I don't know how defendants usually act. But sometimes what I've heard in you know, from the news is that some defendants, you know, they just sit very stoically. They don't interact with their lawyers. They just let their lawyers talk and go. But he was very, you know, talking with them, writing notes, doing that. So you could tell that he, you know, he was, you know, he was fighting for himself.
You saw some very graphic images, videos. You heard very sexual and graphic.
Like, I just think what the clear cut questioning here needs to be, if you believe that Cassie was abused by Combs, you saw the video, you heard her testimony, you found her credible. You're claiming that the other members of the jury found her credible. Why did you not believe then that she had been a victim of sex trafficking? Do you understand like what the definition of sex trafficking is? Do you believe, like, is this something where you believe that, like, okay, she was abused in this regard, but then in this other regard, she consented to it?
Tails, what was that like, hearing that? And how did it impact how you viewed the case?
No, they were very graphic, and but I think overall, you know, we were looking at it from like one side, and it was definitely riveting and eye-opening.
What did you see on the videos? You know, the press wasn't able to see it in real time.
Yeah. No, I mean, they were showing some of the, well, I mean, there was both the freak-offs and hotel nights, as they were called, from both of them. But it was...
what did they show in those videos?
They showed, well, again, you know, the defense and the prosecution showed different clips, so they were very selective. Like the prosecution was showing more, you know, just Cassie just sitting around.
The defense showed that?
Defense showed that, yeah.
Just her sitting around not engaging in sexual activity?
Yes.
For the prosecution, when you had to have your headphones on and otherwise, what were you seeing then?
There was sexual activity, but I mean, it wasn't really.
Was it forced?
No, it didn't. It didn't seem forced. It was actually like pretty tame.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she?
It was just a lot of rubbing oil and stuff on there. It wasn't anything too.
Yeah. That probably has to do with the fact that Cassie testified to being heavily drugged, that she was forced to take a cocktail of drugs, but also that she that she then embraced the drugs because it was a way to get through it.
You know, graphic, I would say.
Let me ask you, this jury that deliberated did not find sex trafficking when it came to Cassie Ventura. They also didn't find it when it came to Jane. And I want to ask you about Jane in a moment. But did it surprise you when it came to Cassie Ventura that they did not convict on sex trafficking?
No, I don't. I think it was a difficult thing to prove, and I think there was always some doubt, you know, whether, because I think what the judge says, it has to be forced. And I think the defense did show some messages where it didn't seem that it was forced.
Oh, her text messages when she talked about it. That was really important to you to consider.
I think that was one aspect. Yes.
Did that make you feel that it was consensual?
It did seem like it. Yeah.
Talk to me about Jane.
Even in the videos and everything.
Like, this is what happens every single time there's a case of involving sexual abuse, where they'll go, well, look at this photo though, where after she alleged sexual abuse, then she's taking a photo and she's smiling. She's smiling in that photo with the person that she has said sexually abused her. Look at these text messages. Look at these text messages after she claims that she was abused, going like, I can't wait to see you again. Like, look at these heart emojis. This is the kind of thing we see over and over again, because this is what works on the public, because they just can't recognize that somebody who is in an abusive situation is not going to behave in a way that they have mythologized abuse victims should behave. Like how they have mythologized around around how you should act when you are being abused. Like when just ultimately, like, the nature of consent not being a part of a relationship that is abusive in nature. So like Cassie messaging the escorts and setting things up and, showing in text messages that she seemingly had a good time, that like
to these issues.
They've already proved, they already have proved that there was abuse in this relationship. And they showed the video of Cassie in the hotel where Diddy is chasing after her and then abuses her on camera. And that was to show how when she would say no, when she would refuse him, this is how he would act. You have to smile, you have to text, you have to lie, you have to engage, you never know. And the other thing too is, like, a lot of times somebody who is in an abusive situation, like, also like is maybe not recognizing that they're being abused, or maybe like they are, it's complicated. It's very, very complex. It's very complex. Like, this was something that Amber heard in the Amber and Johnny case, that, that was such a textbook case of abuse, where even when Johnny Depp would get drunk and high and start verbally and physically abusing her, it took her a long time to leave the relationship, to finally file for divorce and then a restraining order, because she was in love with him, because she like did the whole, we can get you into rehab, you can get better. Like, this happens when you are drunk and when you are doing drugs. She would take pictures of him passed out to show him, like, this is because he would deny. He denied that he had any type of problem, but then he also would admit to like the monster inside of him that would come out, and that was, behavior he wasn't responsible for. But like, this is not like so simple as, oh, you've been abused and then therefore you leave the relationship. You have nothing to do with that person anymore. It's just very complex, and most people still don't understand the nature of abuse in relationships. Abuse can also come in waves and it rewires your brain. It's not uncommon to have good moments in the cycle. Yes, where you think then like, oh, everything's better. You know, we seem to have, okay, so they harmed me in the past, but they've said that they're not going to do it anymore. And I believe them and I love them and I want to be with them. Like, there's just so many reasons why someone stays in an abusive relationship. Why, if text messages are procured, if photographs are procured, like, it may paint a different story than this, than the average person's like understanding of abuse. And it's the whole like, why didn't they leave? Oh yeah, if things are so bad, then why didn't they leave? That's still the attitude that we have. That's still the societal attitude that we hold of like, oh, okay, well, if this person was truly in such a bad abusive relationship, then why didn't they leave? Or where you try and take power back by consenting even when you don't have a choice in a way like Cassie did. Yeah, where, you know, your brain could be behaving in a way where it's like, I feel powerless here. So in order to not feel powerless, like I'm going to convince myself that like everything's fine and that I'm going along with it because I want to go along with it. Participating in your own abuse doesn't mean it's not happening, but people think it somehow negates what the other person is doing to you, like you're actually asking for it to happen to you. Yeah.
It seemed very consensual.
Really?
Yeah.
How about with Jane? Obviously, she testified for several days, very emotional at times.
It was, yeah.
What did you think of her credibility? Did you believe her?
It was very again, riveting, long testimony.
Look, and I pulled this up yesterday, but this is what Evan Rachel Wood wrote. Evan Rachel Wood, who also was in an abusive relationship for years with a man, Marilyn Manson, who held, all this power over her. And she wrote, there is no consent in a domestic violence relationship, period. Once the threat of violence is there, you comply. You do not consent. It is self-preservation and survival. It is not freely or willingly given. It's forced and coerced out of you. We clearly have a long way to go in our understanding of this. And we know without a doubt that Diddy was physically abusing Cassie because of that video. Like, that is not something that the jury is seemingly denying, nor did the defense. Like, they had to own up to Diddy being a domestic abuser because of the video. And yet the disconnect came from thinking then that that meant that Cassie was consenting otherwise in the relationship, despite this being one of domestic violence.
And
Farley?
I did believe her, at least on some parts. Some parts were a little bit didn't add up as much. Seemed a little strange.
What part seemed strange to you?
One part for me that seemed a little strange was the night, I think, when Jane was in, when they had the fight.
Yeah.
It just, the timing seemed a little like you going from like one closet to another closet to it just something.
Look, I know it's like, oh, brother, this guy stinks. But also, this is like the average person in society, right? These are the people who make up these juries on these sexual abuse cases. This is, people in the court of public opinion, how they feel around sexual abuse.
Something didn't add up there.
How about the impact when you heard that her rent was being paid or her lawyers being paid by the defendant? Did that surprise you?
That was surprising, yeah, and it was still being paid.
How did we get here? Well, it's a good question. One is the normalization of sexual violence. It is endemic within our world, and unfortunately, being a sexual abuser does not keep you from participating in public life, from holding positions of power. And in fact, having power and wealth in this country enables abusers. Our systems are built to protect abusers. We live in, the term rape culture is one that is still holds true for our culture. The way that sexual abuse is depicted in popular media, a lot of people's understanding of it is based on what they have seen on TV, how they see it presented in movies, elsewhere in the media.
What did you think when you heard that?
Wow, it was surprising.
I want to ask you as well about, obviously I'm talking about Diddy as if I know him. Like we know his name because he's, this very famous person. Did the fact that he was so famous, did that impact you in any way? Did you know him?
No, I did not know him.
Do you know his music at all?
No, I don't. I didn't really listen to his music.
So seeing him was just a stranger?
Pretty much. I know of him, and I know, but I don't really follow his music or the rap industry in general. So that might have been why I think a lot of the jurors, I think if you look at their backgrounds, I don't think they were, they didn't follow this or that. That's probably why they were chosen.
The other thing too, and I don't know, he kind of said this when she was like, well, did you find Jane credible? So Jane was the other major witness for the prosecution in regards to showing Diddy as a sex abuser, right? As having engaged in sex trafficking. But the issue is the defense went really hard in on the fact that Combs pays Jane's rent and her legal fees, and she admitted to her affection for him on the stand. Jane versus Cassie seemed to not have processed her abuse. So it was difficult, right? Like when you have somebody who hasn't even processed fully her own abuse and having her on the witness stand to prove that this person who's on trial is guilty of having forced her to perform sex activities, against her, coercing her into it. And I think, I've read from journalists who were in the courtroom who were kind of like milling about, getting a sense of like what people were saying who were in the courtroom as well, whether they were there just as bystanders, etc. And the consensus was that Jane was just not as strong of a trafficking witness for the prosecution as Cassie was. And so I think that also weakened the case because the jury was very sympathetic to Cassie, but less sympathetic to Jane. And I believe it probably affected their overall viewing, their overall belief that Combs was guilty of having forced people into sex. They might have made sure when choosing the jury that no one had any background with abuse or witnessing abuse, because then they could argue it was bias. Oh, totally. There was like a guy who I think he was like something to do with fitness, something like that the defense, like this is how much they did not want anyone on the stand who they thought would have any sympathies for Combs's victims, is like they were concerned that was a person who, because their line of work, I think they were a masseuse. That's what they were. They're like, oh, well, they might be, they have an understanding of how the body works. And so that could that could lead them to being biased because of that.
Never expected to be chosen, to be honest.
Yeah? Well,
I wasn't even looking for this at all.
Who would be,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But let me ask you, the other jurors, when you would talk to them, I know you weren't allowed to deliberate at all in this, but when
Yeah.
you talked to them, were they familiar with who he was? Did his celebrity status seem to impact them at all?
No, I don't think so, no. I think everyone was really waiting for the interpretation of the law. And
Is that because you were confused about the case or because you just wanted to know your marching orders?
I think we wanted to know our marching orders and how we need to look at everything. You know, I think we were really, I think, at least for me, we want to be, and we are asked to be as impartial as possible. So we needed to know, you know, you hear both sides of, you know, one side, the other side, and it's very important to know what we're actually supposed to be, you know, ruling at and how we're supposed to be looking at it from the judge.
There was a juror who was excused close to the end of the trial. What did you know about that and why?
We weren't told, you know, what happened. I mean, I think someone had mentioned that it was, I think he lied about where he was from or something like that. But really, we were kind of kept in like isolation from like the whole day. Not really told much, told to not, you know, follow any news or turn off everything. Don't talk to.
So you're not an average person and have it all figured out and know all relationships so you can be a judge to what happened. Listen, you fucking asshole. If you are disagreeing with what I'm saying, then I think I am intellectually superior to you. 1,000%. I think I understand much, much better than you do. I think I have a much more nuanced understanding of abuse than you do. What gives you this credibility? Because I'm a better person than you. How about that? How about that? Or how about the fact that I have been abused before? How about that? How about the fact that I have studied this? Is any of this good for you? Is any of this okay? Does any of this work? That I have my own experience in this? That I have talked to experts? That I have read a ton on the complicated nature of abuse, that I also am an empathetic person, that I am a woman in this world, and so I have many lived experiences where I absolutely feel I can speak to this. So I have played tennis before means I know all of tennis. I'm so glad that you, the superior person, the morally superior, intellectually superior person here, is equating playing tennis to being sexually abused. Wow. Good job. Excellent job. So I have played tennis before. It means I know all of tennis. That is an insane that is an insane comparison. You are saying they are average people and you are not. I am saying that the average person in our society, the overall general understanding that the public has around abuse is unfortunately not nuanced. They do not, a lot of people do not understand the complex nature of abuse, which is why we have shit like this happen, which is why when this is debated in the court of public opinion, you see the same shit over and over again. Well, if she was abused, then why didn't she leave? Well, if she was abused, then she should have behaved this way. Well, if this, but whatever. That there are a lot of people who place the onus on victims of abuse rather than on the victimizers. And you want to know why I know you're a dumbass? Because I don't have a PhD in understanding. I don't have a PhD in sexual abuse, but I have a PhD in understanding very dumb chatters who come into here and try and own me in the marketplace of ideas. So I do have a PhD in recognizing dumbasses, and that is why I recognize that you are a stupid piece of shit. That's all I can say. My sister also experienced abuse. I'm not downplaying it. Actually, you 1000% did when you said, when you tried to use the tennis comparison, that is down. Like, what do you think that is? That's downplaying. A cheap way out of it. Do you genuinely think that you were providing any type of intellectual discussion? Do you think that you were any part of having any type of intellectual discussion here? Because you're not. You're being a massive piece of shit. And you're using your sister's abuse, which is gross. Like, I am sorry for your sister. I am sorry for your sister that she has a sibling that is like you. The tennis comparison says because you've experienced something does not mean you have the full picture. That is true for any topic, abuse, or anything else. Sorry. It is so gross. I need you to recognize it is so gross to have made that comparison. And I don't like what you are ignoring. What you are ignoring is the reality that our culture is still very much so that of a rape culture. That there are still a lot of very harmful myths around abuse victims. And it is why, time and time again, we have outcomes like this in the rare instances that sexual abuse is on trial. It is why that when it comes to a criminal trial, it is so hard to get justice for victims. And often their only recourse is through civil means. The difference of a traumatic experience. It's not a fucking sport. I mean, yeah, it's very clear why that was just a really gross thing to try and form, to try and use as your argument. Yeah, the irony of chatter arguing sexual abuse is literally proving your point. So just to reiterate, the reason that I am showing this interview with this alternate juror is, one, we haven't heard from any of the other jurors yet, aside from the one who was kicked out, juror number 6. But it's because what I've been doing the last couple days is trying to show how a jury is made up of regular citizens. Okay. These are your everyday average folks. These are not experts. These are not experts in domestic violence, experts in understanding abuse. They are representative of the general public, and how, unfortunately, because societally, abuse is still so normalized, we still have a lack of nuanced understanding and also empathy towards abuse victims. We continuously fail to get any type of justice for victims of abuse, and also to stop abusers from being enabled and protected. Chatter, Caroline is not saying this man should be thrown in jail, go to hell, nothing that makes you feel so belittling towards Caroline. It's just saying how we need better education on the matter, like better care and consideration for violence, because violence is not a sport. Yeah, I'm literally just talking about how education and awareness and these conversations that I have all the time on stream are really important, because we have to shift our public understanding if there is hope of justice being achieved legislatively. In a criminal trial. if you have somebody, if you have a jury comprised of people who have a much deeper, much more nuanced understanding of abuse, then these things go differently. And so for people who are sitting here and going, how was he let off? How was he not found guilty? I don't understand. I'm trying to explain that. No need to feel sorry for her. We are good. No, I am sorry for your sister. I'm sorry that she is a victim of abuse. And I'm sorry that she has a sibling who is coming in here when I, a person who's also been a victim of abuse, am explaining this case where sexual abuse was on trial, was what comprised the charges against a very powerful, very wealthy celebrity that has been causing harm for decades. So I am sorry for your sister. And I am sorry for anybody who has to have somebody like you in their life who does not give a shit enough about victims of abuse, about the normalization of abuse, that you care to educate yourself. So I think you should just go. Bye. And you know what? I don't think that chatter even has a sister. If I'm being fucking for real, if I am being so for real, that chatter does not have a sister. That's like the classic chatter saying, oh yeah, well, I have a wife. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Alex, I'll take things that didn't happen for $500. They were only look, you guys know I normally don't like pick trolls out of chat too often, but I do sometimes do it. One, because I have to like have some type of release for my anger, and also because I do think that it can potentially educate anybody else who's like, oh, I was about to type the same thing. I'm like, hopefully not anymore. I unfortunately have a brother. It's not to say that people do not have family members, do not have people who are close to them who have that same mentality. I'm just saying that is a very typical thing for dumbass trolls in a Twitch chat to do, to try and be like, oh yeah, well, I have a wife. I'm like, fucking no, you don't. No, you do not. Bro, they said neutral discourse for this case. Ah! Just stopping in to say I've always seen your posts on Twitter and I support you. Pop off, Queen. Thank you, Mooney June. That's what I was referring to in my previous message. This alternate doesn't seem to understand that consent can't be given if you're under the influence of drugs or in an abusive relationship, let alone literally anything else. So yes, it is important to see how this alternate saw the trial. Thank you for providing this viewpoint. Yeah, like it's important to hear from this guy, because this is so much. This is so many people. This is the public perceptions around abuse. Like our public attitudes around abuse are still, are still deeply affected by the misogyny and sexism and, power dynamics that exist in our institutions. And also, like, this does come down to an issue of a lack of empathy. Like, there are a lot of people who, and unfortunately, sometimes people who have been abused themselves, who just do not have empathy for victims of abuse. Like, that's sadly what seems to be often what's going on here, you know? Sexual coercion is still so normalized. Yeah, I mean, like, there are still these beliefs that rape is something that only strangers do, right? That rape is not something that happens between two people who know each other. That rape isn't something that happens if, you know, consent has been given, but then taken away, that it's like, oh, nope, you said yes. So that there are no factors that come into play, and that a yes, a yes is always a yes. My university had a whole ass campaign about what consent is and is not. Yeah, like, we have to have these conversations because there are still so many misconceptions and so many myths around abuse.
To anyone, don't talk among yourselves about the case, which we
Creepier Leak, thank you for the 20 months. Final Pam, thank you for the tier 1.
we really followed the judge's instructions. At least I did too.
So when
I
that
can only speak
person,
for myself,
yeah,
most of the time.
When that person was no longer in the chair after seeing them there for 7 weeks on end, or however many weeks it was in at that point, did you think it was odd? Did you have concerns?
No. I mean, that's why they have, they call 18 people, because then they knew it was a long case, and there's probably going to be someone's going to get sick or someone's going to drop out. So that's why. So,
would you have wanted to hear Diddy testify? Would it have made a difference to you?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
It wouldn't have made a difference because it wouldn't have added to your understanding, or because you'd heard enough?
I think we heard enough. I don't know if it would have helped or hindered. I haven't really thought about that as much.
Yeah.
But I think it was really helpful, again, in the end, at least for what we were looking forward to, what I was looking forward to the most, was just the 61-page judge instructions of how we're supposed to be charged the law.
They did find him guilty of those transportation to engage in prostitution charges. The prosecution was...
Now, there is a likelihood that in the civil lawsuits that have been filed against Sean Combs, that he would be, he would have to be forced to testify, that he could be subpoenaed in that way. Alexandra, thank you for the gifted sub.
Being very sarcastic and laughing at the idea that these men were just being paid for their time. How did you see that statement?
Who in their right mind with that smug face would choose to go on TV and gloatingly explain how they too would have not convicted a blatant sexual assaulter? Because he and the other members of the jury and a lot of people in our society have they have this view of sexual abuse that is very harmful. So he doesn't see himself as getting up here and defending a sexual abuser as somebody who was like guilty of sex trafficking, because he was acquitted.
You mean the defense?
Mm-hmm. Well, the prosecution said...
Mike, thank you for the tier 1.
Well, yes, you're right. The defense said that they were being paid for the time. The prosecution was mocking that. Who did you believe?
No, I think the evidence to show that there was the transportation of prostitution, I think was overwhelming, and that's why the jury found him guilty on those two counts.
If you had been...
Because the prosecution, not only they showed the hotel records, the bank records, the flight information. For that, I think that they proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
If for some reason you were to ever talk to Diddy, what would you tell him about how you saw this trial?
To be honest, I really wouldn't want to talk to him or anyone associated with that. I just wanted to kind of tell my side of the story, but I really wouldn't want to, associate with him or any of the people that are with him.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
And it's about the video from the Intercontinental Hotel that you saw a lot.
I mean, I was reading this piece that Doreen St. Felix wrote in the New Yorker about titled "The Tragedy of the Diddy Trial," just to go back to like everything we're talking about here and how people are like, how could this guy get up there and like just say these things he's saying? I mean, you had people attending the trial who were saying things like women lie all the time. One of the people who went to create content about around the trial was Myron Gaines. Myron fucking Gaines, the piece of shit misogynist who wrote a book called Why Women Deserve Less. And Doreen St. Felix, there's a part in her piece where she's talking about the like the people who were waiting outside, who, you know, the content creators who were making content around the trial, and she saw this one young man, and he approached another man in a hoodie and began to fanboy over him. As the two men stepped into the elevator and headed to the cafeteria, they unwrapped sandwiches, and the man in the hoodie said, "We are getting into territory where anything can be abuse. Any bitch can claim abuse. Women no longer have the agency that they fought so long for." And this fanboy nodded. And again, that guy who was saying those things was Myron Gaines. So you have the spectrum here of this alternate juror who's like, look, I found Cassie credible, but I didn't believe that he sex trafficked her. Like, I didn't believe that she was coerced into these activities against her will, all the way to these like really dangerous, misogynistic manosphere type content creators who are big players in like the anti-Me Too, you know, culture wars, who go forth and say to their audiences that women are bitches and liars and that they will lie about anything, and that if you are a guy, especially if you are a guy with any, you know, type of power or wealth, then you have to watch out because these women they're looking for a payday. I know it's rough to talk about this stuff so much. I've been in an abusive relationship. I've been sexually assaulted. It's hard to listen to, but I appreciate you talking about your perspective. I got you. I mean, look, this is something that I care very deeply about, and especially when it relates to an industry that I have, I have been a part of in Hollywood, and how rampant, just how rampant abuse is because of the nature of celebrity, because there are people with a lot of power and money, and they use that to protect themselves as abusers, and that, you know, systemically they are enabled because of because of existing power structures.
Yeah, it was.
Was it? Did you see it?
Sometimes they did it like frame by frame by frame.
What did you think of that? Did you see it enough? Too much? Too little? What?
I mean, it was a very bad video. I think they showed it enough. I mean, they tried to show it both sides, and
did it make a difference to you in the actual charges that you would have had to deliberate over?
And like, okay, I'm just kind of, I'm not trying to be a body language, whatever, but my Bourbon Pod, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. You could see him react with discomfort to seeing that video, which like he obviously had seen multiple times. And that's what feels extra depressing, is like, it's so rare that abuse is caught on tape, that abuse is presented in this form of evidence that is just irrefutable, right? The reason that rape cases, that sexual abuse, that abuse cases are really hard to prosecute is, one, our legal system is not designed in a way to protect those who are vulnerable. It protects the powerful, but also because there is, in a criminal trial, a very high burden of proof on the prosecution, and often the evidence, especially evidence that is incontrovertible proof in the form that video was, that just doesn't exist. And so the fact that that video exists, that there is no denying the contents of that video. It is so visceral and so, like, it's shocking. And yet there was still the disconnect in understanding how that was the nature of their relationship, which meant that when it came to these, the sexual activities, the drug-fueled sex marathons that Cassie testified she was forced to engage in for a decade, that was not understood to be without her consent.
He wasn't charged with
He wasn't
violence
charged
alone.
with domestic violence, no.
Did that surprise you?
No, because I don't think domestic violence is a federal crime. So,
Did it cloud the way you saw the rest of the charges by seeing that video?
No, I think we looked at just what we were supposed to be.
Okay, so that's not true, but also he was not on trial for domestic abuse, and that was part of the defense's. That was part of the defense's argument, is that they kept saying, look, if Combs had been charged with domestic violence, okay, if he was on trial for domestic violence, he'd be found guilty. We're not denying that, but that's not what he's on trial for. I mean, this is just like ignorance, right? I mean, you guys, most people they just don't understand things. They're very ignorant. It really is, like, some of them are really with the intent to cause harm, like a Myron Gaines, where he's out here writing books about how women deserve less, where he is a self-described misogynist, and he uses his platform to enrich himself by pushing really harmful beliefs around women, and he enrages his audience. And anyway, there's like that, and then there is just there's like this guy who just is very ignorant, and it's all part of the problem.
What the judge had said we were supposed to look at, and then based off of the evidence that was presented to us, they ruled in that way.
Do you think he should go to prison?
That's for the judge to decide. I mean, he was found guilty on both counts. So the sentencing is not up to us, and not up to me. It's up to the judge, who was by the way, we were all impressed with the judge and how he was. So that the jury, I can't speak for the jury because I was an alternate, but I think we all really much liked the judge on this case. We found him to be very fair, very stern. He was no nonsense, but the way he conducted himself, at least from what we saw, because again, we only saw the beginning, and they always had, when they had sidebars, they would have the white noise, so couldn't actually hear what's being discussed. But we were always impressed with with the judge.
Hundreds of pages of notes, weeks of trial. Thank you for telling us what you were thinking.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, I'm tapped out. I'm tapped out. I think that's what I got on that. Okay. Let's see, what time is it? Time to play Peak? Well, I have to wait for Sam because she really wants to play that. Anyway, solidarity to all fellow sexual assault survivors. You're valid. We support you. You know, educating, engaging in the act of education, especially around something like sexual abuse, is very exhausting, but I do think that it is important. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of news at every moment, but this is, this is an issue that we cannot dismiss as not bearing any importance. Like, this affects us all, all right, well, until the next time. All right, well, maybe I feel sweaty. It's beyond important, it's imperative. Yes, it absolutely is. Because this, the next Sean Combs, the next trial, or the next whatever is right there. Farley! Hey! Why are you doing workies? Are you still alive? Yeah, I'm still alive. What's up? How was the pod? How was your Batman? Was it a big hit? Yeah. Where's Rachel? All right. Well, maybe I do one chapter of LA Noire. Maybe I take a break from Elden Ring, which I have been told I'm addicted to. And I can do a chapter of LA Noire and terrorize the citizens of Los Angeles in the 1940s and maybe solve some crimes, but also commit crimes while I'm trying to solve crimes. How about that? And then I'm trying to decide if I'm going to stream in the morning, because I have to fix my sleep schedule again, and nothing forces me to do that than having to wake up in the morning, because I have fallen off the wagon. I think you just finally have a main game, which is fine. Yeah, I like to change it up, though. It's good to change it up. Plus I do enjoy LA Noire, so it's always fun to... It's a good game when I'm like, you know what? I'm sweaty, I'm tired. I might get up in the morning for a stream, maybe. I want to do a little gaming. I feel like I feel like LA Noire is a perfect game to play. Like the perfect amount for stream. Morning streams are so much work. I will say what I say all the time. I do have a different energy in the morning, even when I'm tired. I just feel more ready to like take on shit, you know? Dumbass chatters who come in here, I'm like, just jumping into things. And I don't know, nighttime, it's like after a full day of dealing with shit, sometimes I'm like, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Farley! You're being misogynistic by continuing to bark even when I've told you to stop. Oh. Why is he going crazy? Oh. Farlito. Want to do anime sports betting? Yeah, I want to do a chapter of noir. I'm in a noirish mood after seeing Le Samurai the other day. Okay, all right. Anyway, if you are heading out for the night, thank you for joining me, as always. And I will likely be live tomorrow. So I hope you come back for the next one. And otherwise, we's gonna do a little Illinois. A little gaming. Because as I said, it's good to it's good to do a variety of things. It's good to change things up, you know? Good night, homie. Good night, homie. Thank you, peace. Have a good rest of your night or day or wherever you are. Wherever you are. Okay, why is this not wanting to open up? James Lee, thank you for the 11 months. Hexing, thank you for the 21 months. What are we playing again? Right, category. Category is concentration. 64. No repeats or hesitation. Category is night-night, Caroline. Night-night. Night-night, everybody who's going night-night. Night-night. Good night. Good night. So long. Farewell. Avita saying good night. The real question is, did she turn off the game since she last played? I did indeed. Will, have you played the new boss in Elden Ring yet? Hey, kid. Heard there was some moiters being committed around here.